breath.
Okay, got it. Yeah, go.
If we could all just take a breath in, out. Akaina Hawaii, lo kahia kulike, olu olu kamana o. Kokulana honui alana kila alohae alohae alohae. So aloha oli, my kumu oli is kumu ai ai. This oli was written from Antipilahi Paki's Aloha, which is also the Aloha Spirit Law, which was adopted by the state in 1986. And it guides us with the values of Aloha, but how they are also expressed. So that is a starting point for us at Kupuna Councils. Mahalo nui.
Aloha yahi kākou au nei o kumu kalehua crew ko ke po kumu kia kula e ho maka wau ka hoolauna ana ke ia wahi maka olo Hawaii. Ho kumu ia kia kula o ka Waihona o kana auao i ka makahiki e lua kaukani me e kai e lua. A hiki ki i manawa he wahi he kahua ho na auao kia no lila kia noho ana me kākou he wahi e na auao ai. Ano lila e ho maka ia, ho kumu ia ki halawai ma kia o lelo ana o he kula ke ia e ola I nā keiki. My name is Kalihua Cook, I'm the principal here at Waihona Kana'awa. The school has been here since 2001, and we are a Hawaiian-focused charter school. And as an educational institution, it's very important to host community meetings like this and start off and hold space to hold conversations that educate the community. And so that's the intention that we carry into this meeting tonight. But as an educational institution, we also behave in that regard as well, understanding that the purpose of this place, of the community gathering is auao, and that is wisdom and education. Housekeeping, and then I'll pass it off. For right now, the bathroom is in here on the right. If nobody's in there, go get it. He is coming, and we'll open also 2 other bathrooms outside if you need to. Any other questions about the site, or about the campus, or anything you folks need, let me know. I'll be around. Mahalo.
Aloha. Aloha. Welcome to beautiful Moku Waianae. Madam Chair, all your members here, welcome to Waianae. And our audience too, also welcome. Anyway, what we're going to do here is we're going to go into kapu aloha. Okay? Why? Why kapu aloha? In kapu aloha we have rules, okay? To conduct a meeting that is more like adults, okay? Rule number 1, we don't cuss. We don't call anybody any name. We don't use any kind of foul language here. Yeah? Everybody good with that? Huh? Okay. Number 2, we don't use any type of drugs while in this meeting. If you need to go, you go outside the campus, across the street, wherever, or towards the ocean, and do whatever you want to do. Okay? But not here. We are in Kapu Aloha. And then number 3, our guests, speakers, which will be your panels. We have the panelists here. You folks, give them the courtesy to speak. Okay, before you speak, give them the courtesy. All right. So, does everybody understand this? All right. Okay. If you don't understand, please raise your hand. Okay, now we're on the same page. Okay, now we can continue. Madam Chair?
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Mahalo, Uncle Rocky, and mahalo for that beautiful oli. Anything else? Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Just give it to her. Thanks. Okay, great. So we're going to get started. My name is Heleni Sonora Pale, and I'm the chair just for tonight for the Red Hill Community Representation Initiative. And very honored to be here at a place of empowerment and a place of education where we can have a really good community discussion about the future of Oahu's water and Red Hill. I wanted to start off with a different oli tonight, just because I think it was in 2021, I was called to a meeting here in this very space right after the spill happened. And I was here with Hina Le Moana Wong, and we were talking about organizing organizing for the shutdown of Red Hill, and that seemed an impossible task back then. So in this very room, she wrote this oli. And that was, I believe, in November or December 2021. So I wanted to honor that. This oli we have done over and over in times of protest and times of you just standing for our vai. So we do it 3 times. It's called Ola I Kawai, and it talks about the waters of Kanaloa. Kanaloa is the guardian akua of the aquifer. And so we ask for his blessing, Ole Kawai o Ku'u Anae, and then the water that is under this island, which is guarded by Kanaloa, feeds our Aina, Ole Kawai no na Kanaka e, and also feeds us as Kanaka. So the water, the vai, which is vital to life, is in all of us, is under our island, and our people knew that. So I wanted to just do this oli as an opening oli. If everybody can stand, have the words there. It's very simple. I can do it once and then you guys can join in the next 2 times. Ola I kawai o kanaloa e ola. Ola I kawai o Waianae e ola. Ola I kawai no Nānākuli e ola. E ola. E ola e. Ola I kawai o kanaloa e ola. Ola I kawai o Waianae e ola. Ola I kawai no Nānākuli e ola. E ola. E ola e. Ola I kawai o kanaloa e ola. Ola I kawai o Waianae e ola. Ola I kawai no Nānākuli e ola. E ola. E ola e ola. So and that's just to center us on the vai and why we're here. We're here to protect our vai. We're here to talk about issues that we need to talk about to ensure the future of our children and our grandchildren. So mahalo everyone for participating in that. Aloha. Okay, so we're going to start off with introductions. We'll start off with on the table here. We'll start with Susan and we'll just pass the mic down. And then we will introduce who's on the Zoom call, on the Zoom webinar, okay? Mahalo.
Hello, I'm Susan Gorman Chang. I'm representing the community and I'm from Eva Beach.
Hello, I'm Shannon Benz. I am active duty Navy in my daytime and currently in my civilian capacity, and was the Red Hill Fuel Director in previous time around 2020 to 21-22 timeframe. Happy to be here, and I'm standing in for a CRI member.
Hello, my name is Tara Sutton, and I am a resident on Hickam Air Force Base impacted by the water contamination in 2021. I am filling in for Lacey Quintero, who is out of the country right now.
Hello everyone, I am Kelani Sonoda Pale. I sit on the Native Hawaiian representation seat. I am here filling in for Marty Townsend, who is, was unable to make it here. So I'm the interim chair tonight. Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Kathy Ho. I am the Deputy Director for Environmental Health with the Department of Health.
Hey, I'm Jamie Marinkla. I'm our EPA's 2023 Consent Order Coordinator. This is the consent order that oversees defueling and closure of the Red Hill tanks, as well as drinking water at Joint Base Pearl Harbor.
Hi, my name is Claudia Espinosa. I'm an environmental engineer in EPA Regis 9 Drinking Water Section. Thank you.
And if I could just briefly, we've got a few other EPA people here. Drew, who oversees the closure, Lynn, who works on groundwater, and Alejandro, who does our public affairs. Claudia and I are actually based in San Francisco. We flew out for this, but they're all based here in Oahu. They're part of our Oahu team.
Great, thank you, Jamie. And we have some people on Zoom, so I would like to start with Ilima.
Hello, Iune Costa. I am at-large community member. Mahalo to everyone who's here.
And Mandy.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Mandy Fint. My family was impacted by the crisis, to include my 13-month-old and my 3-year-old at the time. We were stationed, I'm an active duty Army still. We were stationed at Ford Island, and I'm calling in this evening. I've been restationed. I'm calling this evening from Virginia, where it's 11 p.m. at night. I'm happy to be here virtually with you all, and thank you for opening your doors to us.
Is there anyone else from the CRI board on Zoom?
Yes.
I'm Walter Chun. I'm the representative for the public. I'm one of the CRI members.
Great. Walters, you're going to have to turn up your volume too if you're going to speak later. Thank you. Anybody else?
David Frankel, thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. My Hall and Melody is on their way. My Hall is sitting in on the other Native Hawaiian seat, and Melody Ajuha is driving around somewhere. So we're gonna, is there anybody from EPA online?
Yes, I can start. Hi everyone, this is Allison Fong. I'm from EPA Region 9. I'm an assistant director in our Land, Chemicals, and Redevelopment Division. I'll hand it off to Kareem.
Good evening. This is Kareem Lai, EPA Region 9 Drinking Water Program Manager. And Matt?
This is Matt Cohen. I am US EPA Region 9. I'm a Red Hill Project Coordinator, and I'll turn it over to Chris.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris Chen. I'm a Drinking Water Inspector for Enforcement and Compliance Assurance Division at EPA Region 9. Pass it over to, let's see, Penny.
Mahalo. Thank you very much. I think has everyone been introduced from the EPA? What about Department of Health? Is anyone?
Yes, there are people. Start off with Joanna Chen.
Okay, Department of Health.
Hi, this is Joanna Sito with the Department of Health, Environmental Management Division, and I'll turn it over to Marianne.
Hi, this is Marianne Rossio with Department of Health, Clean Air Branch.
all we have online right now. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And also from EPA, sorry, this is Dusty Miner. For some reason my video is not allowing me to access it, but I'm attorney for EPA. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you. We're very happy to have the Environmental Protection Agency here and the Department of Health here. The Red Hill crisis is far from over, and we need to continue to have these community discussions. We need this opportunity to start asking important questions and continue to ask important questions. First off, I'd just like to say, please help yourself to the food. It was purchased by Mutual Aid Kalahui and Kalahui Hawaii. Help yourself, just get up and make yourself a plate, and there's drinks in the cooler. Okay, so we're gonna get started on the agenda. All of you should have got a copy. We were hoping to have Erwin Kuwata, but he had to go to an open house with the mayor tonight. But he did share some information about the Waianae water, and he also shared that there was a workshop here not that long ago regarding the water here in Waianae. But we're here tonight to talk about the Red Hill crisis, and we want to just make that the real focus here because there's so many unresolved issues. There's one aquifer on this island, and all of our water pretty much kind of comes from the same aquifer that is under this island. So we need to focus on the Red Hill crisis tonight, if that's and that's where we're going to be focusing. Oh, my hall is here, and so is Melody. Mahalo. Come sit down. Okay, so I want to give it to Susan to kind of wrap up anything from the Board of Water Supply, what they had said. Thank you.
I went to did some of you go to the VI convention in May? Yeah. So they covered some of this there, but just there were some questions I know from the Kapuna Council about Waianae water, and so I have, although they couldn't make it today, they did send me a PowerPoint, and it does say that more than half of Waianae water is imported from the Pearl Harbor aquifer sector. And that's usually in the dry months in the summer. And then also there was a question about, does any water get exported to Waianae? I think specifically to Ko'olina, somebody asked. And I have a report here that says, there is no export from Waianae, just import water and then some of your own. So I guess that answers a couple questions that I knew of, and hopefully we can have a Board of Water Supply person here at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so our main concern was, is there any connection between the Waianae water supply and the Red Hill or Waiava water supply, and where, is there any kind of connection there? So it was kind of made clear by Erwin that there is no connection. Okay, so we're gonna go to the drinking water update. So we're gonna get an update from the EPA staff regarding the extended drinking water monitoring plan. There was an open house the other night about this, but we will get an update here, but then what's gonna be really different here is you'll be able to ask specific questions about the long-term drinking water monitoring plan that the Environmental Protection Agency is, and the Department of Health has approved.
Okay, thank you. So just to kind of tee this off, the Navy had done a long-term monitoring plan, which lasted for 2 years through this April. We felt like they needed to do extended drinking water monitoring, and so they agreed to do an extra year, and they put together a plan. The plan built on long-term monitoring, but really was focused on, or is focused on, looking at constituents that could still potentially be impacting the drinking water. And so they developed that. They posted a draft on Monday on their Safe Waters website. I know I should share that with the CRI, and certainly we can distribute that. But as Hilani mentioned, we did a webinar on Tuesday with the Navy to share on that plan. We are still working on approving the plan. So I would not consider it final. We're still refining it, but overall, conceptually, we do agree with it. Aside from looking at a different subset of constituents, we also committed to completing, they're also committing to completing looking at every home on the system, which was not done under long-term monitoring plan, so will be done by the end of extended drinking water monitoring. On EPA, we are actually doing split samples, which means that we are collecting a subset, 5% of all the samples that the Navy are doing and sending them to our own lab to verify their monitoring methods. We are aware that there were a lot of TPH hits at the end of long-term monitoring. They developed a tech memo to look at that. They shared a hypothesis that it was really an artifact of the lab testing. We are generally open to that hypothesis and supportive of it, but part of EDWM is verifying that so we can feel comfortable with that conclusion. So another purpose to do another year of monitoring. And so one thing we wanted to do here was if you'd allow us to share the presentation that we did do on Monday. We have Claudia and Chris who both delivered that presentation on Tuesday at our webinar. It's about 10 minutes and it talks about our oversight of the extended drinking water monitoring as well as a series of investigations that EPA has done since the spill related to drinking water. And of course we'd be happy to answer any questions related to those. So if you'd be amenable, we could, I know, share over Zoom. I know Matt had the presentation lined up.
No question.
Yeah.
I just want to share, and it says the host has disabled. Oh,
sorry.
There it goes.
Here you go.
Hey, could you hold off, Matt? We've got a question in the room.
Should we like this?
Yeah, so let's have him do the presentation, then you can ask it right after. Is that okay?
Oh, I thought this was part of it already.
Oh no, they're gonna do the presentation and then right after you can ask a question.
Okay.
So then you'll get all the information and then you can probably, kind of formulate your question from with the information they provide just right now. Thank you, Nicole. Aloha.
Okay, great. So this presentation mainly highlights the oversight activities and investigation activities from EPA. Next slide, please. So just as an overview of the oversight activities, EPA is providing regulatory oversight under the 2013 Administrative Consent Order, including Navy's compliance with long-term monitoring that concluded in March 2024. EPA also provided comments to the Navy's draft Extended Drinking Water Monitoring Plan that began sampling in April 2024. Specifically, the drafts that were submitted to EPA on March 15th, May 3rd, and most recently, June 19th. EPA also began split sampling and analysis for selected sites under EDWM to enhance oversight. In addition, EPA conducted independent drinking water investigations and continues to investigate drinking water complaints reported to the agency. Now I'm going to pass it over to Chris to go over the investigations in greater detail. Next slide.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'll be describing EPA's investigations into the drinking water served by Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam in the Aliamani Military Reservation. I have this timeline up here that captures the primary investigations that we've conducted to date. Our first in-depth investigation was before a consent order was issued on June 2nd of 2023. EPA's National Enforcement Investigation Center conducted a water system inspection of Joint Base and AMR from April 4th to the 8th, 2022. We received a batch of complaints regarding the drinking water served by Joint Base during the week of October 16, 2023. That was also the same week that the fueling began. So as a result, I was already on island by chance. I conducted in-person interviews with residents on October 19th to determine the extent of the drinking water concerns and also to evaluate Navy's complaint response procedures as well. We received an additional batch of complaints in February 2024, and I conducted a mix of in-person and phone interviews with those residents. In addition to the interviews after the second batch of complaints, we requested Navy send split samples for any samples collected as a result of a residential complaint to EPA for independent analysis. And so those samples were analyzed by EPA Region 8's laboratory. So from February 27th to March 13th, 2024, we received 20 split samples, which were collected in alignment with the drinking water long-term monitoring plan, as that was still active back at that time. On April 22nd, 2024, EPA Region 9's lab began analyzing split samples collected as a part of Navy's EDWM plan, so not the LTM plan anymore. And we started doing this even though the plan was still a draft at the time. And then most recently, just earlier this month, I conducted another water system inspection of Joint Base and AMR, and I conducted this inspection with contractor support. This inspection was led by our NEIC, although we had EPA Region 9 inspectors present as well, and Department of Health. For those who don't know, NEIC is our Environmental Forensics Center for EPA's enforcement programs, and they support complex criminal and civil enforcement investigations. And so the April 2022 inspection identified numerous areas of concern, and many of these were incorporated directly into the 2023 consent order to ensure that those concerns were appropriately addressed. So the slide does not capture all of the requirements within the order that were a result of the inspection, but it does capture some of the notable concerns, including the lack of standard operating procedures for the operators, lack of a valve exercising program, lack of a flushing program, and written complaint procedures. They found that there was improper storage of the chemicals used for their drinking water treatment, and there were issues with our systems, risk and resiliency assessment, and emergency response plan. Next slide. So as I mentioned before, on October 19th, I interviewed 5 residents who expressed concerns with their drinking water. A common theme that was described was some sort of manifestation of skin irritation, such as a rash, and it typically seemed to be associated with bathing. And as a result of that investigation, we coordinated with Department of Health and Navy, and had Navy collect long-term monitoring samples at 4 of those 5 homes. 3 of those 4 that were sampled had TPH detections in the 50 to 70 parts per billion range. We also had some recommendations that Navy needed to provide more training for their representatives visiting their homes, share a 1-page pamphlet with some of the most important information so that it was easy to remember all the important info, investigate the premise plumbing and the root cause for the TPH, the sheen, and the stems, and also to provide alternative water to homes while waiting for any sample results or pending investigation. Next slide. So I conducted a second investigation in February, interviewed 8 residents from Joint Base, 5 from AMR, and spoke with 8 of them in person and 5 were over the phone. And there were some similarities to October 2023. The most common theme of symptoms that were described was some sort of skin irritation, as 10 of the 13 residents reported skin irritation in the prior 2 months. So, February, January, December, and they all believe that it was linked to contact with the water. 10 of the 13 residents also reported relying on alternative water for their drinking entirely. This investigation confirmed that Navy had attempted to address all of the recommendations from October 2024 investigation, which was good. And we also yielded a couple of additional recommendations, such as including sheen analysis when responding to complaints, an outreach plan so residents are aware of any protections in place from retaliation or reprisal when filing drinking water complaints, and to develop standard operating procedures for how they manage their alternative water and when it should be delivered and how much. Next slide. All right, and then lastly, I recently conducted a public water system inspection with ERG. That's one of our contractors. And in addition to our normal focus during an inspection of the physical assets like the source, the well, the tanks, looking at the operations and maintenance to determine compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act. The inspection also had a sampling component. So we collected samples for a subset of the analytes that are within Navy's EDWM list. And that included looking at EDB, TPH, some volatile and semi-volatile organic compounds, and metals such as lead and copper. So we collected those samples at the 3 sources, Waianae shaft, Red Hill shaft, and Aiahelaki shaft. AMR's entry point to the distribution system, a few homes and childcare facilities. On top of that, there was an additional sampling component. We collected PFAS samples at the 3 sources and AMR's entry point to the distribution system. And these samples were more comprehensive in analysis. We're looking at 70 different PFAS analytes so that we can have as much information as possible regarding any potential PFAS presence. Since this inspection just occurred, the reports are still in development, so I can't comment on any of the observations or areas of concern for both of those inspections. But the joint base report will be posted on our website, just as all of our previous reports. That's it, back to you, Claudia.
Thank you, Chris. So during long-term monitoring, as a follow-up to resident drinking water complaints, EPA conducted independent laboratory analysis of 20 split samples at the residents with drinking water complaints. These split samples were collected by the Navy and sent to EPA Region 8 certified laboratory in Lakewood, Colorado. So just a brief overview of what is split sampling. It's a technique where multiple samples are collected from the same location at the same time and then sent to separate laboratories for analysis. The results from separate laboratories can then be compared to help determine the accuracy of the data. Next slide, please. So how did the split samples compare to the Navy results for long-term monitoring? One of the big things you notice is that the method detection limit and the method reporting limit for the different laboratories are different. In the case of EPA Region 8, it's much lower than that of the Navy. And because of that, you saw differences in the non-detects and detections of constituents such as TPH. So the TPH detection that was seen in EPA Region 8's range from 20.5 to 28.8 parts per billion, and in the Navy they saw non-detect through 51.6 parts per billion. And that was in the diesel range. In the gasoline range for TPH, both did not have any detections. In addition, EPA did conduct a chromatogram pattern analysis of these TPH detections. The pattern detail did not seem to resemble JP5 or other fuel analytes, and the low-level TPH detections were likely attributed to residual chlorine surrogate reactions. Next slide, please. As we mentioned earlier, EPA is committed to performing independent split sample analysis on a selection of drinking water samples collected by the Navy under EDWM. The split samples collected by the Navy are going to be sent to EPA Region 9 certified laboratory in Corvallis, Oregon for independent analysis. Next slide, please. So EPA began laboratory analysis of EDWM samples on April 22nd, 2024. EPA is analyzing for most of the constituents listed in the Navy's EDWM plan. In the table to the right, you can see some of the most notable analytes that we are sampling for, such as total organic carbon, total petroleum hydrocarbons, EDB, VOCs, SVOCs, some metals and mercury, cations, anions, silica, and total alkalinity. The results of these analyses will be available in an independent EPA dashboard that is currently under development. More information on this dashboard will be communicated in the future. Next slide, please. So this concludes EPA's presentation. For a copy of EPA's final drinking water investigations reports that were discussed earlier in this presentation, you can find them in the link on this slide. And then for additional information on EPA's work to regulate the Red Hill bulk fuel storage facility, you can visit the website also listed on the slide. And if you have any questions about EPA's work on Red Hill, you can submit your questions via email to redhill@epa.gov. Thank you.
And we shared these slides in an email earlier today as a PDF to the CRI, but I think we're also posting the whole presentation online and the webinar too. I don't know if it's up yet, but you can view the webinar on our website. You will be able to view the webinar on our website.
Thank you. I want to have Mai and Melody introduce themselves really fast. Sorry, housekeeping. They came in a little late.
Hello, my name is Mai Hall. I am a Native Hawaiian community member and also an affected family. Hi, aloha. I apologize. Kind of got lost to get here. My name is Melody Ajuha. I'm from Kahalu'u. I represent the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party. So I am one of the CRI members that represents an organization. Thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, I'm going to ask if any of the CRI members have any questions to the EPA or the Department of Health. Were you guys involved in this long-term study at all? Oh, sorry, that's a question, but okay. But does anybody have a question? Yeah.
I think you said going forward for the long-term monitoring, 5% are going to be split samples. Is that correct? So 95% are not.
So we are targeting about 5%. That is about 40 samples per month and about 10 per week.
Okay.
But it's all going to vary. That's
Sure.
our target.
And who selects those 5%, the Navy or the EPA, or is it random?
I'm not sure about that. I might call on Corinne or Claire, might be online.
I believe that the Navy is they have a regiment where at the start of the month they focus on schools, then they focus on distribution system, and then throughout the month they do residentials. So they have a certain amount of each category that they're sending out to EPA. And we're doing 10 a week, 40 a month.
I have a question. Who collects the samples? Is it the Navy or the EPA?
It's the Navy.
Sorry, one follow-up. So we are planning to do, essentially the sample collection is really important, as you know, and so, they have a lot of trained folks doing it. And so we have tried to scope out what it would take for us to do it. We're, especially in our kind of auditing capacity, what we felt was likely the most probably prudent way is to do an audit of their inspection technique, which is something that we're planning to do and might even be more valuable, is to really assess how they're conducting their samples more than us doing independent samples. So that's something that is in the work to verify that.
Yeah, I would just ask that you make sure that the Navy isn't sort of cherry picking the ones that get split sample. That would be my concern.
Yeah, no, thank you for that input. And of course, they don't, at the time they're splitting them, they don't know what's in that, right? Because we're both doing our analysis in parallel, but they'll be at the source, so they could, still choose perhaps. But thanks for that feedback.
Yeah, Shannon, so I would like to ask, why did you wait so long to do the split samples? And are you testing for lead, acetone bacteria, specifically bacteria that grows in fuel?
I can take the first one, and then I'll definitely defer to our experts on the constituents. But it's doing split sampling is logistically complicated and expensive. It's not something that we normally do, and it was really an output of the LTM, especially because of the issues with the TPH. And so that was something that we really elevated our oversight over as a result of those samples. So it's pretty rare that EPA is going out and doing this level of analysis, but it's something that we thought was warranted in this case. And then the second question.
And I think we have some questions online from, we'll have Kimo and then Mandy, but is there a question here?
It just sounded like there's
Just a quick clarification. Can you, when you say LTM, can you long-term monitoring or TPA? You're using a lot of acronyms, and I just want to be sure we're on the same page.
The second part to the question was the lead, acetone, and bacteria. Is that being tested for?
Yes, so I was looking at our spreadsheet. Lead is on the list for our split sample analysis. I don't think I see acetone, and bacteria is not.
Okay. Just a quick follow-up, why not? I think I specifically brought this up 3 months ago at that CRI, and it's a known fact that bacteria grows when fuel meets water. So
yeah, typically for bacteria, you want to do it in a lab that's closer on island because the hold time is a lot less. You have to have preservatives. So because we're shipping it to EPA certified labs in the main island, it's a little bit more difficult to do that. So I think the Navy is doing bacterial analysis, but as part of our slip samples, I don't believe we are.
Yeah, so those can actually be ordered online and tested on the spot. I think I even mentioned it's very similar to like pregnancy tests, right? So it's you just dip it in the water and look to see if the bacteria is. So strongly recommend. I don't know why it's not being done, because that's maybe what's causing people to get sick.
For EPA, we would use certified methods, not field kits. So if we were to do bacterial analysis, we would have to make sure it's sent to a certified lab.
Okay, yeah, so again, it's an investigation technique, so strongly recommend that gets done.
And I just want to express concerns before I get to the next question from Kimo about the Navy collecting the samples. Thank you. Kimo, you have a question?
I think it's a question for Chris. Have you, I mean, I know that you said the PowerPoint, but have you folks collected any samples from homes with a sheen of fuel in the glass that somebody's collected? Have you done that yet?
We have not. So the only time we've collected a sample as part of an inspection was the June 2024 inspection, and we didn't observe any sheen to collect a sample for in regards to the samples that we took for that.
So if some family member finds a sheen of water, a sheen of fuel in a glass of water, and they would like it tested, who can they call? Because you guys, the Navy's not going to test that water, but you guys have said that you're willing to do that. So how can somebody let you folks know that they've collected water that they'd like tested?
I think at this point, if any sheen sample needed to be collected for analysis, then my understanding is that the Navy has developed a sheen method and is ready and capable of collecting the sheen analysis. We are still in discussions with them, though, in reviewing what that sheen analysis is and whether it's acceptable to us.
But, so I guess I don't understand. So first thing you're saying is EPA is not going to do is not going to collect the sample, not going to do the testing. Am I right about that?
So we would collect the sample if we were out there, like I was out there on an inspection, and we observed the sheen and we were prepared for sample collection. We would collect a sheen sample that was collected from the water at that time. Our general policy, and because we have to follow our quality assurance project plans, we would not accept a sample from a water sample that was collected by a resident where we cannot confirm when or where it was collected because EPA doesn't, we don't, for quality control reasons, that's not something that is in our.
Sorry, can I jump in just for a second?
That is very frustrating. That is very frustrating because I understand from a sort of programmatic perspective that you folks have a methodology. And that methodology is used because the chain of custody is important if you have a criminal case. But separate, and I've explained this to you folks before at one of these meetings, there is no such requirement when it comes to public health. You folks have an eyewitness from the EPA collecting a sample that comes out of the faucet. If you're concerned about public health, and we know this kind of contamination is going to come sporadically, if a resident finds fuel in their water, you folks need to test it. Your PowerPoint words are misleading because you are not testing the sheens that residents collect. And that's what you need to do. If you want to see evidence of contamination, you need to do that. And it's frustrating that you guys are refusing to do that.
Thanks. Could I just jump in to respond? The first thing, just for clarity, I know it doesn't directly answer your question, but Chris did go to houses that had previously had sheens. I know, kind of as you're describing it, if the sheen's not present, it's not necessarily capturing that, but that was a big part of the targeting of his sampling. And then the second thing about, really how do we capture that? The Navy is developing and implementing a water quality action team. That's not EPA, but it's something that that a big purpose of that is to be responsive when they get complaints and to go out and do rapid testing. We have not actually seen the SOP for that, the standard operating procedure that they will be sharing with us. We're still working on finalizing EDWM, but that is a critical component, the sheens. We definitely acknowledge that, and being able to identify and test what is in them is something that we're trying to develop. It's kind of novel process and method, and so we're still working on that through the water quality action team that the Navy's put forward.
Thank you. Okay, so Uncle wants to ask a question. Okay, can we get up the mic? Can you say your name, Uncle?
I'm Oliver Matsuda. Now the thing is, the first question that I heard before was long-term. To me, 3 years is not really long-term. I mean, they leaked for decades, and then, we're going to check for 3 years. To me, look, that's not long-term. But now the real question is, how is the sample taken, and where is it taken? I can see where it flushed millions of gallons. So between the well, the tank, and the last hydrant, the main might be clean. The problem is the water that people are using. So what is the procedure for a water sample to be taken? Because I'm familiar with how Board of Water takes their water sample because they're checking for chlorination and stuff. You turn on the water, you run it for a couple minutes or whatever, from their sample site. That's, say, right outside of the well. You run it for so many minutes, you take your, you wash, you take your sample, you seal it right away. Now, if people are complaining about fuel in their water, you shouldn't be flushing any water. You should be opening the water right off the tap. Because if you're brushing your teeth, you're not going to stand there and run the faucet for 5 minutes. You're just going to turn it on, wet the brush, and brush. Or you're going to just jump in the shower as soon as the temperature is hot enough. You're going to jump in a shower. You don't want to be wasting water. So samples should be taken as soon as you would normally use water, not after flushing. So are you guys flushing before you take your sample? Because you're flushing away any sheen that might have been built up in that system. So, to me, common sense, you take it as soon as you open the water, not run it for so many minutes, which is probably the SOP that the Navy's running. And it's clean in the mains, but in the houses is where the problem is. And that's where, and to me, common sense, the samples should be taken how people normally would use the water. So, do you know what the SOPs for the samples? Because I'm pretty sure it's flush for so many minutes before you take your sample. And anything built up is gone down the drain already.
How long? Thank you for that question. And I agree. What's your answer?
No, yeah, that's great. First, I want to answer the first part of your question that you mentioned, which is about the long-term monitoring. This is an intensive effort that was stemming from the fuel spill, and the purpose is really to identify whether there is still fuel in the...
We have a long agenda, sorry. So we're gonna get to the question, so that we'll go to Uncle Sparky after. Okay, great. Okay.
So to identify fuel specifically from the release and to determine that there's not residual fuel in the system, there's still a lot of requirements of the drinking water system to continually test. There's also a lot of testing of the groundwater still as part of the site assessment process. So there is a lot of other testing going on outside of the long-term monitoring and extended drinking water monitoring effort. In terms of the flushing, I do want to hand it over to our program experts, but a reason why you flush as part of the method is because a lot of the pollutants that would enter into the water right when you turn it on are really introduced in the home, and not necessarily the water that is delivered to the home, but what's been sitting in the pipes in your house.
That's what they're talking about.
Right.
The stuff that's building up in their pipes.
Well, the
why
stuff
they're
that
not
is
using it.
Right.
And that's what you're supposed to be looking for.
We have residents here that are still living with that.
Right, but that's what they should be looking for. What's built up in the pipes, not after you flush this.
Right.
Hey, you're not going to turn it on and wait 5 minutes before you brush your teeth.
Right, but it's introduced from the house rather than from the water that's coming into the house.
It's introduced from the house, the piping in the house.
I also want to turn over to our technical experts.
Okay, we're gonna have Uncle Sparky. He raised his hand first.
No. I will raise my hand first.
Oh, okay. We'll have you.
He's right. Can we get together with all of these players, all of the stakeholders in this testing methods and requirements to work hand in hand instead of going in separately? Because each guy is coming up with their own results and we still getting guys getting hurt. So where's the commonality in this? It's on this panel. You guys cover the lines under the ground through the valleys and the peaks. All of this water gotta get down. And the biggest question I got, how come only the housing on military base get hit? Downtown Hiccup, downtown Pearl Harbor, downtown Fort Island, zero. Everybody drinking water. As soon as you go into any developed housing area, bang. Then when they come to the TV and showing glass of sheen water, they have to have a team that come in there and investigate that, because if it's not coming out of the pipes, but it's in the glass, somehow somebody will deliver or they will put in their own sheen. Who knows? That's part of an investigation. Bottom line, TPH, as the base component of crude oil coming out of the ground. You guys say the thing is too much diesel, too much this. No, TPH is part of the crude oil makeup of fuel. And that fuel is additives, plane flies, boat run, tanks run, vehicle goes. TPH is always constant, it will be present in all of you guys' investigation. So you guys need to know the makeup of this fuel coming from the ground first. You're going to find crude oil foundation base is TPH. So the question of how come TPH is lingering in the system, that's the baseline of crude oil. You guys got to understand, for all these years, those tanks was holding fuel. So they go and manifest on what exactly they're carrying. In these exact fuel levels and fuel sources they carry, they got the ingredients. So we cannot entertain, come DPHs, who put in diesel. Let's look at it. You guys need to get on this board on petroleum engineer that knows full on petroleum. We can bring all you guys' concerns down to the minute things, get the right people on the board. Because they're the guys who can orchestrate how we're going to do these methods and how we're going to do them in a way that all the guys on the same test line, get EPA, work with Navy, work with whoever else on you guys' testing team, and do one combined effort test. You guys like do the test? Cannot be 5 guys show up and 5 guys get different readings. Huh? I mean, bottom line. I mean, if you guys need to get guys on this board that knows what's going on, how to read the system. This system of Red Hill is nothing new. It's just the fact I have, in my position, I have to get the eyes of 2023 on a 1929 system. They're coming in with all the credits. Design build, specs, requirements, OSHA covering everything. And you look at one system that you gotta go into hazard mitigation. Did they ever make them that time of history? Now you have to do it. You need somebody in the tunnel. Pull cameras, take the eyes off. You need somebody to put out the fire. That's why they're gonna upgrade the system. Put one central command, press the button and the system down. Get everybody out. We don't have no issues of losing life on the front end. That was the biggest concern of this DPU. We're going to lose life inside a tunnel with this operation going on. So I need this part, as I see it, I really love all you guys, but we still hearing the same rhetoric over and over, how you guys testing this. It's kind of like, who's running the cage? A lot of things, a lot of mishaps, a lot of everything is just, oh well, that's not gonna fly, especially with the community. Let alone the people that are getting infected. Like I said, downtown, Hickam, Pearl Harbor, and all the way down the line, nobody getting sick. This is a dedicated line coming out of Waianae, monitoring. That Waianae pump comes to all of the housing area, AMR, Arizona. It goes all the way to Hickam. Water out of Hickam going into the home is one thing. Testing within the units of the home, coming through the water heater, because If TPH is the component that you guys causing all of this, okay? Put this TPH on the test. You guys run the labs. Put them on the test and see what kind of chemical reaction it has, because it's going to affect humans as they consume it or they even get the hot water in a shower. I mean, it's not like rocket science. I mean, you guys should be the top of the line.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I can just very briefly, so, you know, one test that we run is looking at chromatograms, which is trying to find the signature of what it is, you know, what is causing a TPH hit. And we've looked at that, and one thing we've looked at is it linked to JP5, the 2021 release, and the science that we've seen is that it's not. And so, you know, what is it? And so that's something we're definitely digging into. And you say it's not rocket science, but it does feel like rocket science to me at times. I'm definitely relying on our experts to look at some of these charts, and it's, you know, it is challenging. There's a lot of, you know, potential options out there, but we are, you know, looking at that data, and I really appreciate your input here today.
Can I just add a little feedback on that? I hope you're just not looking for JP5, because there's other fuel that was leaked, F24, there was MoGas, you name it, like black oil. So if you're just relying on JP5 censure, then that's wrong. Just like over there said, it's a wrong, bad plan.
Yeah.
Uncle Sparky. Wait, I just like ask one question real fast. Like, so you guys check the box system that you guys using for check this water. Where is the community's input into, besides you and the Navy talking about this check the box, where is the community input on you guys?
Sorry, the check the box with extended drinking water monitoring, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I mean, here we are, you know, talking through some of this stuff. We are trying to get feedback through this, through webinars. The Navy's doing town halls. I feel like I wish we had been talking about it through these forums, and we'll talk about kind of the CRI, but I do really, you know, value the input of experts to look at these plans and trying to get them to you earlier. And wish that, you know, we can refine that process. We really want to finalize it. This, the long-term monitoring plan elapsed in April, and so we've really trying to get this off the ground. You know, ideally this would go through a rigorous public process, but we're trying to get it in place as soon as possible. It is already being implemented, but, you know, finalizing exactly all the parameters of it.
I guess the one thing I would ask you guys is that when you guys figuring out this check the box system, try just put your family there in your guys' thought process, and think that whatever decisions you are making, that's going to affect your family. Yeah? Sorry, Uncle Sparky.
Thank you, Lena. And all really good questions. Thank you guys so much. You guys was here like 5 minutes and you guys get it already. Like, this is what we've been saying for every meeting. Okay, go ahead, Uncle Sparky.
Forgive me if I offend anyone, because the intention is to do that. We have been the recipient of environmental and social injustice for generations. We are the end of the water pipe. Anything that goes on in town, we get what's left over, or we get whatever is in there. And one of the things that I've experienced in all this Red Hill stuff, I don't trust you guys. I don't trust the military to deliver honest. And the reason they want to get out of this committee is because they want honest, factual information delivered. But they cannot even do that. And I'm depending on the EPA to deliver honest, relevant information, and I cannot even trust that. And the reason I cannot trust that is because I do not see independent peer review of the methods, the process, the testing, the gathering of the materials. And when one of the slides, there was a huge disparity, whatever, between the Navy and the EPA. What's up with that? If it's a split sample and you guys are getting that kind of deviation, something's wrong. And because the Navy's not here, what are they hiding? And how are you acquiescing to them hiding those facts. So the question that I have, because you have community at the beginning of your committee here, we want to know what's the truth. And at the moment, because no peer review, how do we develop the trust? And one of the things you mentioned was about enforcement. I have not seen an admiral, a captain, or anybody arrested or threatened with arrest, or what's up with that? These guys were the one in charge. They failed to protect the community. And what's really worse, they failed to protect their own troops, their own families, their own children. So with that kind of failure, what can I expect from them on how they're going to treat my community? Again, we're going to suck olives. There's going to be a lot of no cans or agency separations because you're not working together. I'm interested in what's going to happen to our community. And right now, the water that's coming out to Waianae, we're going to pay more because what the Navy's done. Because now there's one source that has been eliminated from making sure everybody gets water. So we are going to end up in a short end of the stick and having to pay more because of the Navy. They're going to reimburse us? No. Are you guys going to help get us reimbursed? No. We're going to have to just pay more money for the water source that they help pollute, contaminate, and poison us. We are also downstream of all of the ocean, the stuff they dumped in the stream into Pearl Harbor. We're downstream from that because all the current runs this way. So our beaches have been impacted. All the oil that's leaking out of all of their poison sites there, we're being affected as a community. And because you guys are segmenting this process, you're only looking at a box. We live outside the box, but we're affected by what you guys are doing. And I don't feel that we can trust at this point. So I'm asking you, what can we do to help you get peer review? I'm not interested in a cost. I want to know. I want our community to know. I don't want our kids to be Jello babies, in a few generations because of what the Navy has done and what you guys have not done because of your job description. Be honest, tell the truth, and even if they don't like it and you're going to get fired, I would honor you more to take that route than to continue the Potomac two-step. I think that's it.
Thank you. That was a lot. Thank you.
I get more, but
I was waiting to be
honored.
offended. No, I really do appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, and we gotta kind of move on. But you had a question, and then we do have Mandy on the line who's been waiting patiently. Sorry, Mandy. And then we'll have Melody and Tara. Go ahead, Mandy.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. First, I just, I was trying to hold back the tears. I really appreciate both uncles speaking up because, I am an active duty service member, and never in a million years did I think that, risking my life to this country would equal that I would come back to, to Hawaii, and that my kids would be poisoned by my own employer, and that we would still, this many years down the line, be dealing with the same, questions, unanswered questions that we are now. So thank you so much. And one point that I would like to raise is, first Uncle, hit it right on the head, is that there is not an advisory out to families on this drinking water system to run your system for 5 to 10 minutes to get rid of whatever might be lingering. And I'd like to highlight that those pipes that you all are talking about, Jamie, you hit it on the head. These are porous pipes. They do hang on to contaminants. We were told to discard of all of our porous materials. The CDCs, where our children were being, in daycare, they had to replace all of those. And I know that because I fought that because my children were in those daycare facilities where all the personally used plastics that held on to contamination were discarded. The thing that has not been discarded and replaced are those pipes in those individual homes. And you're right, we do flush them out for quite some time, and we only test the cold water. Most of us, and I've ventured to say that 99.9% of us do not shower in cold water. And so, to flush the system and to only test the cold water is not truly getting a quality assessment of what folks are genuinely being exposed to. I'd like to highlight that. One thing that, and so thank you for pointing those things out. One thing that, I have a couple of things, but one thing that really stuck out to me in the EPA's brief is when Shannon asked, why have you waited until now to do this sampling? And the first thing that stuck out to me was how much it cost to do this and the expense. And I would like to ask, because I'm familiar with how much money has been allocated from the NDAA and from Congress to this problem set. And so I would like to ask, and if you don't have the answer tonight, then I would like, it's a do-out. I would like to know how much the EPA and the DOH has been given to this problem set to prioritize human health, to make sure that to testing. That's a question. My follow-up question is to Chris Chen. Now, Chris, to be fair, myself, Walter, Chan, and Lacey were with you specifically when you did some of these investigations with the residents. And they wanted us there as the CRI, as trusted agents, if you will, to be there and advocate on their behalf, but also to be like a second set of eyes on what happened. And Amy sent you there, Chris. Amy, who was not here tonight, but she sent you there. We got at the 11th hour a laundry list of folks. You were still in town. I want to ask, and for the record, and for folks who just received your brief, did you in any of those homes observe a sheen right there in the spot? Someone filled up, water, you saw it come out, and did you witness the sheen?
Yeah, so at the last home, we know one of these names, sample was taken from a fridge and put into a nonstick pan, and there was a sheet on that nonstick pan sample.
And can you explain to the crowd why you didn't take a sample, or why, if you weren't able to, you didn't send someone to take a sample of Ashley Smith's home, who's been very outspoken about the sheen that continues to still be in her water out in Manana, housing across island?
So I was out there, I was not prepared to collect any samples. There's a lot of preparations that need to be done for that, developing a sampling plan and having equipment. So that was not the intent to collect any samples for that investigation.
And do you recognize that a sheen means that there are 5,000 parts per billion of TPH to be able to see a sheen?
Can't verify if that is correct information or not.
Okay. And my last set of questions is, there has been this downplaying of significance when it comes to the people who are being impacted by this. And I can speak to, let's talk about rashes. That is something that has been, there's been these flyers put out about, that's just like the biggest complaint, rashes. We're not talking, just for the audience and for folks who listen, we're not talking about rashes. My son, who was 13 months old, as I have said, did not have a common rash. I took him to the doctor many a times at Tripler, and every topical solution that they gave for my son for these quote unquote rashes, none of them worked. You wanna know why? Because my son had chemical burns. And what I did as a mother to treat these rashes when none of the topical solutions would work, I bought some Aveeno baby bath soap, and you know what I did to my 13-month-old? I sat him in the bath thinking I was soothing him, but I was actually making it worse. These are not rashes that these innocent children and that these people who are consuming and bathing in water, these are burns. So I'm concerned that you all are saying that it is just rashes, that they're quote unquote stress rashes. Chris, if you could, because I sat again in a lot of those investigations with you, and I would say, and I don't want to take my words for it because you're the one giving this briefing, but if you could talk about some of the other symptoms that residents still today express to you in your investigation beyond just these stress rashes that the EPA and everyone else is downplaying to be the symptoms. Because it wasn't just rashes, right, Chris? That people told you about?
Yeah, so I mean, I use the word skin irritation because there was a variety of different ways that people described it. And it was like a catch-all for the different types of manifestations that it could be, whether it's a rash. Sometimes you can see it, sometimes people couldn't see it at all, but it was bothering them. Some other symptoms that were reported. So historically, so I guess since the incident in 2021, 6 of the residents reported some sort of hair loss, and then 5 residents had reported some gastrointestinal issues in the past couple of months. And through the 3 residents who had ingested the water had also reported some sort of gastrointestinal issues as well. I think that was probably the biggest commonalities that I observed.
And just a reminder, Chris is reciting what was told to him and he documented. EPA is not a health organization. We don't have doctors. We don't have any ability to downplay or upplay any kind of health impacts. We really aren't in a position to assess that. We're really there to assess water quality, certainly document, and Chris was able to document that as part of the
Jamie, I appreciate the follow-up, but the briefing that you guys just gave us only talked about these minor skin rashes as if that was the only, and I want to be clear that that is far from the truth. And so if the EPA does not report on medical, then that probably should not be in your brief. The last question I have is that this piece of paper that you all gave out talked about other, we've heard everything from these TPH hits could be from gloves, now it's chlorine. We've also heard, and it was on a recent flyer, that it could be even something as common as makeup. So for someone who wears makeup, not tonight because it's midnight here in Virginia, but can someone help me explain what that means? And I heard, Chris, you explain that to the women at AMR. You talked about it could just be like, makeup. Does that mean that you think that people are crushing up makeup and putting it in their water? Like, how does makeup get into the Navy's drinking water system? Can you make that make sense to me and the folks who still are scratching their heads about that explanation?
You want me to take that, or?
Yes, you're the one that told these residents that it was there.
Okay, yeah. So I guess your question is about TPH, and so it captures a lot of different compounds, and so when I was speaking to those residents, I was just explaining that TPH, while fuel is there's different fuel components that can contribute to detection of TPH. There is also many other sources that could contribute to the detection of TPH. Not saying that they're grinding makeup and putting it in, but it was just to...
Well, I know that people aren't grinding up makeup, but was makeup one of the constituents stored at the Red Hill fuel tank? Was makeup stored at Red Hill? I mean, why are we talking about these off-the-wall things that it could have been? Like, I don't understand why we're filling the conversation with things like it could be makeup.
Okay,
was makeup stored at Red Hill, Chris?
No, and I mean, I don't even think I recall really getting into detail about this topic with the residents that I spoke to. But the point is that TPH is more than just fuel-based, and that there are a lot of sources that can contribute to the detection of TPH.
Thank you. That's all I have for now. I appreciate it.
I'll just go back to your first question, since you went straight to the second one. But in terms of funding, I could be wrong, and I'll certainly correct myself in a follow-up. But EPA doesn't have a appropriation from Congress on Red Hill specifically, and we also are not getting any money from the Navy. They pay for a small amount of travel during fueling, but otherwise, it's mostly just been out of EPA's budget, and we've been supporting the Red Hill work.
Thank you. That's great information, Jane.
Did you ask Congress for money? Do you have it on your palm? Do you have it on your plan?
I don't think that we can request. We can.
You're a government agency, correct?
Congress for money. It's the discretion of Congress to set our budget.
And then the other part of Randy's question was, does the DOH get money? before testing.
I was going to twist.
The DOH does not get any money for testing from EPA, from the Navy, although we do ask for cost recovery. So we spend the money and then we ask for cost recovery from the Navy for the work that we've done. We haven't gotten any money from Congress. We did, I don't believe we've received any money from our legislature, aside from, we did give $4 million to buy equipment.
Thank you. So we're gonna, because we need to get to the ventilation, that's important, that's going on right now, and the University Health Registry. So we're gonna do 2 more questions. We're gonna have more time at the end for public to ask questions, but we're gonna have Melody and Tara wrap it up with their questions on this topic and then get to ventilation, which is very, very important. We need to get to that topic. Thank you. Melody?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, the question I have is regarding the testing that's done and the constituents. I hear that lead is one of the things that are being tested. And I just checked, there is no safe amount of lead in drinking water. So I just want to know what is the level of the results of these tests. Also for PFAS and PFOA, of course the EPA just came out with their MCLs, which is at 4 parts per trillion. So what are the results of those tests? Mercury, we're at 2 parts per billion. What are the results of those tests? And what are the regulators going to do to enforce the Navy to correct the danger that's caused by these constituents? So that's one thing. And Jamie had mentioned every home is being tested. There's split samples, only 5%. It's going to go to Lakewood, Colorado, as well as Oregon for your house, your own lab. Now, we've testified, Environmental Caucus has testified for a EPA certified lab in the state, and it was represented to the legislators that there is equipment that satisfies the EPA certified lab. If that's the case, then why is it being sent to Lakewood, Oregon, as well, Lakewood, Colorado, as well as Oregon? You've also mentioned about artifacts that has tainted the lab testing. What artifacts are you talking about? And Chris had mentioned alternative water is provided. How much alternative water and what kind of alternative water? And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Great questions.
That's it. We're going to be here all night.
If you can just give real short, concise answers as much as possible at this point. But thanks for bringing that up, Melody. Appreciate that.
Sure, thank you.
So I'm going to try to remember what the first question was. I think it was about the constituents.
Yes.
Okay. So I would encourage you to look at the plan, the draft plan that the Navy posted, to look at the list of constituents that they have proposed for EDWM. As far as the results, they have the results posted online for all of both the long-term monitoring and some EDWM results available in their website. EPA's in development of posting our split sample results, so that is not yet available, but it will be available publicly.
Okay, and then your results will be on the EPA website?
It will be we're developing an independent dashboard for EDWM split samples.
Yeah, you missed that part, Melody.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
My apologies. Okay.
And then your I'm sorry, your second question?
What was lead, PFAS, and
Lead.
mercury?
What are you going to do about it? That was her question.
Yeah.
So for lead, I would have to look at the levels. I don't have them off the top of my head, but you're right, there's no safe level of lead. Lead is a regulated constituent under Safe Drinking Water Act, so it would need to comply with the lead and copper rule. So we would follow standard drinking water regulations for compliance with the lead and copper rule.
There is no, it's zero go when it comes to lead. There's nothing.
Hey Melody, this is Green. So you had probably perused Safe Water's website and had seen the exceedances of lead and I think mercury. There's one sample that was above the standard, and there were, I forget, a couple of dozen maybe over the course of LTM that exceeded the lead action level. And in all instances, either the standard corrective action would be to flush the tap and then resample and or replace the fixture. And it's not unusual that after system-wide flushing, where you might be scouring the pipes and loosening some of the kind of the protective coating in the system, that you might trigger some deposits. So every single lead exceedance was resampled after flushing, and or the fixture was replaced and then resampled such that it resolved the lead issue. The same with mercury as well. So we had tracked that down to make sure that it came to resolution. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And then on PFAS, PFAS is not part of EPWM. We did send a letter to the Navy, which I shared with the CRI elected members. Both EPA and DOH co-signed a letter requesting that they monitor source water, all three sources, as well as groundwater for PFAS. And so we are expecting a response by tomorrow, which we can share out. I'm sure there's a lot more we can talk about with PFAS, but
thanks for that letter. Okay. And then Tara has a question.
This is quick. Back to when Shannon had brought up the field kits, and I recognize that those are not part of the standard testing procedures for EPA, but would it be beneficial, and would it be something that the EPA is able to consider to use those as just a preliminary screening in order to understand whether or not we need to do something other than sending it all the way out to where, Oregon, I think you said, where we wouldn't be able to do those because of the distance, I think, right? So could the field kits be used as just a preliminary screening to warrant further investigation?
About bacteria specifically?
Yeah,
right.
Bacteria.
I don't know if I would recommend that, because your drinking water should be chlorinated, and the chlorine will be addressing any potential bacterial contamination. If it does have low chlorine, then potentially there might be an issue. But if it is chlorinated, we wouldn't expect to have a bacterial contamination.
Okay, I would just, for a takeaway, just maybe consider it, especially given that maybe the chlorine is, there's been a lot of things being said back and forth about the chlorine, if it's exceeding and causing problems, or if it's too low, it's causing problems. So it might be worth just to kind of understand maybe from the source.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I think field test kits, could potentially provide preliminary results, but I go back to why we focus on approved drinking water methods, because they provide consistency, and part of the collection of the samples are of most concern, certainly about not wanting to cross-contaminate before you even get it shipped to the lab. So, just kind of from a long-term stance on ensuring drinking water methods are used, because they're there for a reason.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. I definitely respect the standard tests. I just was thinking to maybe alleviate the barrier that's in place, given the distance of the lab, that might be a thought.
Totally understandable.
Thank you. So we're gonna move on to the next item, which is ventilation. That's happening right now. It's my understanding. I want to have that discussion. I want to make sure we get to that topic. Did you want to start it off? Okay.
So a bit of background.
So we're gonna have at the end more public comment.
Yeah, but I gotta go already.
Oh, you gotta go. Okay. Yeah. Here, take this one. Sorry.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Make sure you say me.
Hey, aloha. My name is Ed Warner, born and raised in Nānākuli. I just wanted to say, when you guys, it's really bad and sad in what's happening up right here. Did you guys ever, what kind of pipe system those houses have? Is it PVC? Is it copper? Is it galvanized? What are we looking at?
The inside of the home.
The reason why I say that, I gas-free those tanks 30 years ago. I was the one that gas-free those tanks, cleaned those tanks. I know all about radio. That's why I'm here. I've been with the environmental that time. So we gas-free some of those tanks up there. I know how the system works. I know details in how we got rid of how we clean it, how we gas-free it, how we pumped it out. When you talk about JP4, JP5, you talk about diesel, you got high sulfur, you get low sulfur. What do you guys research? We feel we got, inner fuel has benzene. Benzene is a cancer-causing element too. You guys ever tried to look on the aquifer? You got Pepsi, you got the prison. These guys all get tanks too. I'm not trying to discourage with the military, but I'm saying, did the EPA, did you guys on this panel, because it seems like I'm hearing you guys out, but yet I'm not hearing you guys out. It's like a whisper down an alley, down a hall. You guys come out and you guys say this, but then get to the back of the room, it's all watered down. We want facts. That's what we want. I've been in the environmental for a long time. I know everything about that tank. I know how to vet them. I'm the guy that did them. Did you guys ever, talk with the military about contamination? Is it coming in from different resources from the ground? Ground diesel, jet fuel leaks out in the ground, gets into the water system. I'm not talking about the aquifer. I'm talking about locations, right? on the base or wherever. Did you guys even research that deep? It seems like you guys coming here, why, the number one, I'm all about safety. I'm not gonna take away that. But the number one thing, why the military not here? When you talk about the military, you talk about the admiral, in order to get funding through Congress, Jill, Maisie, Shots, Case, you need the admiral for that. So did anybody on this panel ever give the admiral a finger? I'm serious.
Yeah, they did.
Because if you guys did, no wonder the military not here. And it's not funny. We need the military. We're not only talking about radio. We're talking about Koli Pass. We're talking about the army. We're trying to find, we got problems. We're trying to fix the problems. But you guys coming and creating more problems. I'm not here to judge. But if you look at the overall, when people start, especially on Admiral, right? I can tell you right now, the Admiral would never talk shit to Congress. Because where they get their funding from Congress. And if you talk smack to Congress, the Admiral is in deep shit. That's why I don't fool around with Admirals. We need them. We need them, and that's the truth. You guys can say and don't believe me. I know what I'm talking about. I make laws. I got laws to those Hawaii laws. I got laws. I did the Alzheimer's. We got that. I did the minimum wage. We got that. I got my son's law too. That's on law. We got that. And a lot of things I do with the capital. So it's not like I'm here not knowing that, I don't know what I'm talking about, because I can tell you I do. I work with the labor force. We try to keep our people working. We try to create work over here. I know the guys that working on those tanks now. I know the environmental guys that will be doing them. And it's not an easy job. It's a dangerous job. So what I'm here saying is, we gotta come and work together instead of downing. We gotta find solutions how we can work together. So, like I said, we don't only Red Hill now. We try to, I live in Nānākuli. We trying to get an evacuation plan, an emergency evacuation in case we on tidal. We need the military to help us with that. Well, hey, we're gonna fight back for our land like Uncle Spocky doing. That's what we're trying to do. So I'm not here I'm just here to speak the facts. That's all I do. So if anybody tearing that down, you know, we trying to find ways to help the west side. And we need the military right now to help us. And when we start screwing with them, yeah, you know, we can go out there and push, you know, we need this land, we need that back. It's fine. It's fine. But we need to come together on common ground and fix the problem. There's a problem right now. You guys get the solution for fix them? Raise your hand if you can fix them. Yeah? We get landfills in here. Is the EPA monitoring the landfills? I don't think so. I already put in Act 73, no landfills in half a mile of any residential. That's right there, sitting down. That's why this landfill got to go. They're contaminating our ground, right? So if you guys think I don't know what I'm talking about, well, I can educate you one-on-one. You know what's happening. But that's all I get to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. And we do have families on this board whose children were poisoned.
Yep.
And they were lied to by the Navy. So they're not here. We are gonna address the ground rules, which has been a point of contention, I guess, or disagreement between us right now, that we were gonna have that discussion after. We gotta get going. We only got we have.
Yeah, I gotta get going too.
Okay.
But just walk in here.
Yeah.
And I go get this for my components. I gotta ask you this: what happened on my watch? Reading something in the paper, we're not getting together. There's some kind of, that's not bad. Because you represent me, or you don't.
I do, but.
Yeah, no, in the paper, that's what it was. Like,
yeah.
There's some kind of.
But we didn't poison 93,000 people. Let's just get this straight here.
It's just about reading.
I didn't poison anybody.
No, reading about it, that the whatever committee is not getting along with the EPA, CIA, whatever. But that's our concerns, yeah? The Navy, whatever, that's our concerns. You know what? I know you represent me, but I don't know if she does. I'm so sorry for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah.
Ventilation. This is I just want to give you a last speaker. Thank you for that. It was a good intro to what I have to say. Ventilation, shortly after this humanitarian crisis occurred, the Department of Health issued an emergency order. In that emergency order, we had the Navy, the federal government, shut down the tanks. And as part of that, they had to do shut down and close the tanks. So as part of that, they had to do a closure plan. And what they had to do was defuel the tanks, and then after that, they have to clean it. But in order to clean it, they have to degas it, or get all the gas out of the tanks. And so that would require ventilation. As a result of one of our CRI meetings that the Department of Health has been coming to, we heard from the community that the community was concerned that the Navy was not going to be looking at what is coming out of, the gases coming out of the tanks, and whether it was going to be protective of public health. So we heard that. And so as a result of that, we approached the Navy and asked the Navy to do a monitoring plan. They didn't have to do it. Somebody had asked us, why aren't we requiring them to put scrubbers or other things at the top of the stacks to clean the tanks, clean the air as it comes out? There's no regulations for the Department of Health that we can do that. But what we can do, and what we did do, is we required as a part of the closure plan that they do a monitoring plan. And again, you know, the Navy balked at that, but we ultimately prevailed upon them, and they had decided that on their own that they would do a monitoring plan. So so after the monitoring plan was created, they had to do 9 monitoring stations, and so they're measuring the gases that's coming out of the tanks. And so there are 3 criteria in which we're going to stop degassing, and that is if the total VOCs of the 9 monitoring stations goes above 38 parts per million in volume in a 1-hour time-weighted average, they'll stop that. If the exhaust vents go above a certain level, and if the exhaust vent exceeds a certain emission rates by a certain amount of pounds, they're going to stop immediately. Also, as a result of, as a result of hearing your concerns, they are putting in near real time, about an hour or so after, on their website, the air quality of what's happening in the degassing. And what we're requiring them to do is to degas not all the tanks at once, but we want them to stagger the tanks so that one tank will be degassed, and then the next tank will be degassed, and then the next tank. So it's not going to be all at once. And that's so we can better monitor what's coming out of the tanks. I'm happy to report that as of May 30th, when they began degassing, that all the 9 monitoring, 9 ambient air monitors were revealed that there were no real impacts. There were no impacts of the air quality, and that it is essentially background air. So you can look at where, you know, one of the things is someone asked, where, and I asked my staff, where are these air monitors? And these air monitors are around the perimeter of the facility. They're also, there is a monitor or 2 at the prison, which is next door, and there is a monitor near some homes. You can look if you're interested. We've asked that the Navy put the plan on its website, so you can look there. That's all I have to report, thanks.
Question? Thank you. So we're gonna, Walter's been having his hand up for a long time. I'm gonna have Walter ask the first question on the air monitoring. This was something that Walter had brought up about why can't we put air filters as the gas is coming out. And I wanna just say that after our discussion from the last CRI, after we brought up concerns about Halawa Prison, 700 residents in Halawa Prison there, after we brought up concerns, they did address the issue about evacuation and making sure that there is a monitor at the Halawa Prison. So I'm gonna have Walter ask the question next.
To the department, thank you for the letter we received the other day regarding the venting and the monitoring plan and everything.
Walter, can you fix your volume and make it a little higher? Sorry. Is there a way you can use a mic or?
I don't know. Is this
increase
better?
The volume. That's better. That's better. Yeah.
Okay. So, Kathy, thank you for the letter that you sent us about the venting and the degassing and the air monitoring plan. I was able to look at some of the information on the website, but we still need time to look at the rest of the air monitoring plan and that kind of stuff. But I wanted to comment on both this one, and you heard from members from the public a little while ago talk about the water and the what's in the water and why can't we fix the problem. And I think one of the main concerns always is if we're going to allow people to be exposed to different things, whether there's a regulatory standard or not, you have to let them know. You have to tell them they're going to be exposed to certain things. If you believe that what you're exposing them to is not going to cause any health effects, you need to tell them that as well. So our concern with the venting is still a concern, is that you guys have established monitoring levels that if we get to exceeding these levels, they have to stop. Well, at that point, people have already been exposed. And so when we look at these different levels that you guys have selected, and I don't really have a problem with the levels that you selected, my problem would be, what is the effect to the children, the schools downwind of the venting? So whenever we have exposures, whether it's in the water that they're drinking or whether it's in the air that they're breathing, that's the concern. What are they being exposed to? Have they been notified? Are you telling them what the health effects are, so that, and if there's any protective measures they have to take? But definitely, what are the health effects? So a lot of times when we pick these individual monitoring plans, whether it's water or the air, you realize you are exposing people to some contaminant, especially in the drinking water right now. We don't even know what they're being exposed to. We just know what the health effects are. And we know that we're doing all kinds of investigations and not getting any place. So the uncles that spoke earlier hit the nail right on the head. They're just saying, you know, we're doing all of these investigations, we're saying all of these monitoring things we're doing, but you're not addressing the problem. And so those are the concerns we would have. Up till now, and I guess I looked at the monitoring data for the venting of the tanks, I really can't tell a whole lot from what's posted on the website, so hopefully they're going to upgrade it and provide more information. I think that's all I have for now on the venting.
Thank you. And I'll just add one more question to that ventilation. Has the residents been notified that this was happening, and how have they been notified?
So both the both the DOH and the Navy issued press releases about the venting.
Wasn't it after the fact? After you started venting, then you stated that you were venting?
I don't know that for a fact. I know that there was an issue that I believe the Navy issued a press release saying that they were going to begin venting, but the Department of Health did not approve their plan yet, so they couldn't begin the venting without the approval of the Department of Health.
Great. And then, thank you. And then you had a question.
I just wanted to add to that, as an impacted resident, no, the Navy and Department of Health did not notify residents. I live in the area. I got nothing from my housing, nothing from Department of Health. I found out after the sore throats developed, after the headaches. And other people I live in Radford Terrace, other neighbors are experiencing the same thing, sore throat. But we got no notification, so there's that.
Thank you. Okay, any more questions? Shannon.
I do. Okay. Yes, just real quick. So I'm really concerned for the community still, just because there's these numbers being put out in the plan. I'm reading off of this State of Hawaii DOH letter, and I appreciate the information. It's not relative to anything that I am aware of, but it says 48.2 pounds per hour is being emitted. So I pulled the permit that Par Hawaii has, the East Refinery and the West Refinery, right? So there are HAR regulations, the HAR 11-60-13, 11-68-1-90, 11-60, and 1-161. So there is like not equal, like the Par Refinery is not being treated equal to the Navy's facility. They're both fuel facilities. The one in Campbell Industrial Park is completely away from communities. The one in Red Hill is smack dab in the middle of the Lava Valley. So how is that compared to how many metric tons are being emitted from Red Hill from these vents? These 2 tanks being vented, and then you're staggering them, so you're gonna break open a couple more tanks down the road. So PAR in their East refinery is allowed 616,000 metric tons per year. So what is this calculated to at Red Hill? I would like to know that number and how it compares with the PAR refineries.
I'm gonna ask Marianne if she could assist me on this.
Sure. If the question is how many tons per year would be emitted from the Red Hill facility, they calculated a maximum potential of 13.9, I believe, tons per year for the first year, and then it would go down after that.
Okay, so include that with, because it's not just Red Hill, it includes the ships emitting CO2 and gases from Pearl Harbor. They're treated as an entire facility from Red Hill, goes all the way from Lava Valley down to Pearl Harbor out to Hickam. So did you include that in your calculation? Because you have to add all those covered sources for the totals.
But those would be regulated under their air permit. So what we were looking at was the degassing activity.
But for the HAR, right, for the refinery, shouldn't it be a total emissions for the facility? So I request a due out on that, if possible.
I have a question. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait for the mic so people can hear you. Not like you need it, Uncle Ben.
The concern about that, I can see you guys and I understand, I get it. But if something go wrong inside those tanks, you ain't gonna get on mountain. Everything going. Okay?
Put the mic up.
We crying up over crumbs that can come out. But the big chunk, if one tank go, it's domino action. You guys talk about all these throwing numbers out there. Once you get into the environment and a Makali comes, it's gone. But inside that tank, if you let this thing accumulate during the operation, we over. We're down in the dominoes. So you guys need to really think about this. You guys are looking at our 1929 system. How do you think you guys are gonna apply 24 requirements to this? So you gotta get an industrial hygienist. They coming in there, the guys going, that's their job. They gotta figure out how they guys gonna ventilate this. How they gonna ventilate them. And then you guys gotta go over the guy's specs. And if this thing is doable in your eyes, you guys gotta go, you carry the credits, I believe you. But if you're not, you come in over here with all this paperwork, and you carry no credits and understanding of this ventilation deal, okay? Bottom line, not gonna have one will be out. And I'm not jacking everybody off. This is the real deal, 100, no BS. So we're grumbling about ventilation.
No one's grumbling. We're asking questions.
Okay, so my
she
question
lives
to
by
you,
the tanks, so she
okay,
just said her kids were getting
My question
sick.
to you guys gonna stay on this ventilation, and then
If we didn't bring this up, then no one would have known about it.
No,
that's why we're here, Uncle. Okay? Nobody's grumbling. We're asking questions.
I understand where she coming to. But you guys need to put on Class A's and go inside the belly of the beast in this operation.
We have been asking for that, and they've refused us to go in.
Why? Because you guys not gonna be able to handle. I'm telling you, and this is not bullshit.
We want the information to get out to the community who lives next to the tanks.
Okay.
We're not arguing with nobody.
Right, okay.
We're asking questions.
I get it. But this ventilation gotta happen. You guys put in.
We're not arguing that.
No, you guys put in.
Why was the public not notified of the ventilation?
Explain all the numbers, and only one can explain to me. Nobody on this board can explain. It's going to be an industrial hygienist. Engineer,
Sure.
are you an engineer?
Sir, I emailed you, sir.
Are you
And I
an engineer?
asked-
My question is, are you an engineer?
No, that's why I asked you
Okay.
what questions
I
we
cannot
should
listen to
ask.
you because an
Sir?
engineer will come with the principles and requirements in all the specs.
There's a million people that live on this island, and I'm just saying, we're asking questions. And if the questions bother you, then I don't know what else to do.
If you guys going through this, you guys need to go walk in the belly of the beast.
You're saying that, and then you're saying that we're not gonna know what we're doing.
You guys wouldn't be talking like this if you guys in the middle of the operation in the tank.
People are living right outside of the tanks, don't even know it was being degassed. People who are living, her children are getting sick from the degassing.
I get it. I
No,
get
you
it.
don't. Did you go into her house?
Okay, so explain this to me. What is the mechanic? Tonight's wind will blow 25 miles an hour. H&N News. You know how much wind that takes for 25 miles an hour?
Do you want us to keep silent and just wait?
No, I'm just telling you guys.
Wait for the
You
Navy
guys
to give us the
You
information?
guys are going to the
They lied tonight,
ventilation.
they poisoned
Yeah, I'm just
93,000
saying.
residents, and then they lied about it, and then they didn't give out the information. So is this a question, or are you haggling us here? We're asking questions here.
You guys can't handle it.
You're not asking a question, you're telling us we're arguing, we're asking questions.
May I please ask a
Thank you. Thank you very much. We need to get the information. That's why we're here. That's what we were elected for. Who's next? Mandy's next. Thank you.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Uncle, I just want to say, I'm not there to see you in person, but I do appreciate your passion. I appreciate the points that you're making. The reason that we are concerned and wanting to hear from the EPA and the Navy if they were there about venting is because, and I can speak on behalf of impacted families, is that these folks who are in the impacted area, we do believe that they deserve to have knowledge. What happened with the water crisis is that, the Navy held on to this information. The federal agencies knew that this was going on, and they failed to warn all of us who, were impacted. And so we didn't have that knowledge, we didn't have that information to be able to make informed decisions, to be able to protect our families. And so on the CRI, community members that are in the impacted areas have heard about these venting operations, and they want to know when venting is happening. That way they have the information to say, hey, if I don't want to be at this, if I know that this venting is happening on this date, maybe we'll take, a trip up to the North Shore or to whatever to be out of the area. That way we can be a little bit more vigilant with our health, with our children's health. And so that's why we are really concerned and are bringing these questions, to the EPA and to the DOH, because these folks were not given that opportunity before. And so we want to make sure that history does not repeat itself and that the community at large is informed on what's going on. So I hope that better explains as to why we're asking the question. And no one here, especially me, is not claiming to be, an engineer. That's not my area of expertise. I, as one of the 10 CRI elected members, represent impacted families, and that is a concern that is coming out of that population of folks that I represent. So my question to Kathy is, first of all, I really appreciate you guys listening to our concerns. I do. But speaking on the, how we're getting on information, we would not have known, we as a community would not have known about the venting operation starting had Joanna Sita not called me in the middle of our internal meeting that we were on with the EPA that we do every week on a Wednesday. We would have had no idea.
And here's why, because once again, the Navy is not putting out that information at large. When the water crisis was out, when they were done denying and lying to the community, we were informed in multiple ways. It was on their Facebook, it was posted all over social media. Housing offices put out, they have everyone's email on that drinking water system and in the affected area. Emails were sent out, hand-delivered notes were received to people's door. Right now, the only thing that has happened is, you're right, a press release was sent out prematurely, prior to you all even in approving this plan. And it was buried somewhere on their website. And now I'm being told that the only way that people are getting information on venting is by their app, an app that most people, a lot of people, including me, don't trust the Navy to download this app because it tracks your location, it tracks, personal information about you. And so I would like to highlight or elevate this concern to the DOH, is that most of the impacted community is still not getting the information in multiple ways. So we would request that you go back and request, since the Navy has refused to come to our meetings, that when they are venting or they start a new tank, that it is put out through housing, so that every impacted housing area gets an email, that it is put on their social media pages. The app is a source, right? And then a press release goes out. That way there are multiple streams of information so that we are reaching the mass. That way people, again, can be vigilant with their health and know what's going on. I also am a little bit concerned, Kathy, you talked about, the Navy has a requirement to do, 3 different things and inform you all. But are we just taking the Navy's word for it? Does the EPA and the DOH have a person on site monitoring these people? Or are we once again relying on the Fox, which is the Navy here, to protect the hen house? Are we just taking their word for it? These folks who have not shown to be good stewards of the profession or the environment, quite frankly, they've had a history of being dishonest with this community. And so are we just taking their word for it? Or do you actually have folks there to validate what it is that they are telling the public? And then my last question, and this is the last one I have, is, when I read that you all approved their venting operations plan, it was based on a modeling that the Navy had come up with. And I want to be clear, was there anyone else that was involved in that modeling, or was it just the Navy? Because I know that you made a very bold statement, which we appreciate, said that you actually did not agree with the Navy's modeling when they said that not everyone on the drinking water system, to include Fort Island, where my family was impacted by the water crisis. The Navy said that. They've continued to say that there were certain areas, Pearl City Peninsula, Monona, Catalina Beach Homes out in Iroquois Point, Fort Island, and a couple of other that were not impacted. Based on their modeling, they said it was not possible. You all, the DOH, disagreed with that. But now, in the same breath, you are agreeing, or you are trusting their modeling for this venting operation. And I'd like for you to kind of talk us through why you trust them now with their modeling and you didn't trust them with their water modeling. Thank you.
So, we have worked with EPA, DOH and EPA worked together with the modeling. So Drew can answer, and then Marianne, if you have anything else to add, that would be good.
Yeah, Drew Sees with the EPA Region 9. I can't speak to the modeling. I'll leave that up to DOH, which is on there. But to Randy's first question about providing oversight and how we're trusting the Navy, myself and other individuals from DOH are on site during ventilation. We've been invited by Navy to take a look at their continuous monitoring of their ventilation stack. And then when we're not there, we receive hourly data sets that are emailed to us that list pretty much the continuous VOCs that are collected from the ventilation stack, as well as the 9 air quality monitoring stations.
Thank you. Mandy, I'll take back your comment on getting the Navy to do a wider broadcast of the venting. Marianne, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about the modeling. So the model that we require the Navy to use is an EPA approved model that we use for our permitting, and it's a standard model. When we got their model, we reviewed it and checked it, and we ran it ourselves to also verify it. So hopefully that answers your question on the model.
But is it true that you didn't agree with their modeling, which said that, they come up with a model that said there's no way that certain areas were impacted by the water, and you guys have said in a statement that you didn't agree with that?
Sorry, I can only speak for air and the air model that was used. Maybe someone else can speak with water.
Yeah, Kathy, that statement came from you, so are you able to?
You know what? I don't see Dennis on the line. Or is Dennis on the line?
Yeah,
okay,
the
Dennis.
question is in regard to the hydraulic model.
Yeah, the DOH has said recently that they did not agree with the Navy's modeling when it came to water, and their statement that they've made that, not all residential areas were impacted by the water crisis. They've maintained that. The DOH has said we didn't agree. The DOH, meaning Kathy, it came from Kathy, did not, and I imagine Dennis, based off of your analysis, did not agree with that. Which, most of us who were impacted in those areas would also, agree with that as well. So if you're not agreeing with the Navy on their water modeling, why is it that you trust the Navy's modeling when it comes to air and the protection of human health?
It's two separate models, right? So so I can only speak to the hydraulic model. Yeah, it's a look back. It is calibrated. It has to be calibrated, properly calibrated, or we don't feel that it was, because they don't know what the pressures were throughout the entire system. But what's more important, when they come up with a result and make those statements, what we also look at is the complaints. And we're not going to ignore the complaints, because that's very valuable information that's acted on. And so you can produce a model. It's a theoretical thing, but you have real data from people calling in saying they got, they're getting sick, and that's something we're not going to ignore. And that's why we disagree with the model.
Thank you. And did you, just to be clear, Dennis,
Maddie, the other thing is, we didn't, for the air model, as Marian mentioned, we ran our own, they ran their model, we verified their model. So we did our own analysis on their model, is what Marianne said. So we verified.
Thank you, Kathy. That is reassuring. I want to highlight what Mai already said in her own neighborhood, that if you all, like Dennis stated, are not ignoring complaints, you've just heard one tonight, and so I hope that you all will look into that. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Mandy. Are there any other questions about ventilation from anyone? Okay. Melody.
Just a quick question to follow up what Uncle Kalani is saying. How volatile are those gases in those tanks with this phase right now?
They gotta meet the ELD, low explosive limits. This gas has gotta get out. If it stays linger during operation, static electricity, she will go. I just bring in a 100. This thing will fall like dominoes.
Are you saying it's more volatile now in its gaseous state than it was when it was full of gas?
If you don't get that gas out in the ventilation area.
Could someone give Uncle a mic so we could hear him?
Yeah. If it doesn't get ventilated right, the only exit point for the gases is through the vents. You get one IHS, an industrial hygienist engineer, and they come inside there and they design one system. You guys can sit on the board and look at the design, see how this thing is going to be calculated out and what the mechanism of operation. The whole idea is to keep that tank in a LEL, low explosive limits. You cannot have anything above the explosive limits, because the guys inside the tank trying to make this thing happen, at the same time take out the sludge right now. That operation is doable, but you have to have a well-executed plan, and safety gotta be the key. in this whole operation. And that's before we even get outside to the community. Because if the guys in the tunnel get blown up, the community just gonna take the residuals, because the whole we went into aftermath. This thing is just gonna drop. And that's what what you guys need to understand. This thing is a system that we never gauged almost 100 years down the line that we are addressing this. This is not the first time she's been invented. It's been invented through the years. And each company that came in did the work. Navy went to Texas and get the top petroleum guys. So those guys came in doing system check, call us in, and we all sat on the table. Basically, that was my school. That's how I would learn about everything you guys discussing. And I know the multitudes of layers of things that can and will happen if not run right, and safety is not the key to this operation. All the housing out on the top, they're gonna be part of the collapse system. Your Moanolua, H1, Can Highway, boom, it's coming down. Those pipes, they're running through all these lines. And when the pipe system goes, the tank goes, it sends a ripple effect all the way down.
Down to Pearl Harbor.
Down to Pearl. That's why in the ERP, in the Emergency Response Plan, Chapter 12, empty the bench program, everybody off the bench. State, federal, Coast Guard, everybody. Because the guys gotta come in, who's gonna govern the outside the reef? Who's gonna govern bringing in the Army Corps and the Navy to start pulling out the mountain? I ran rescue in there for years, for decades. It's now a pretty sight when you're outside in blue skies and sunlight, when you're down at 6,000 feet, and you start to figure out, hey, the walls are coming in, they start going through the phobias. I gotta get them out. Or you get stuck inside the elevator. You're in the elevator and then all of a sudden power outage. And I gotta tell the girls inside, in 20 minutes, that emergency fan going off. We ain't gonna have air. You guys gotta listen to me. That day we was doing rescue. I had rescue one with me from Honolulu Fire. Cap sent 2 guys on the top of the cap. The ladder is on the left side. I made them space each other 5 feet apart. And I gotta not only encourage the guys in the cap, I gotta encourage the girls. The ensigns, Navy, young Navy ensigns. I try to calm them down. As I said, you're gonna be able to use your eyes. You're gonna be in total darkness. Your hands become your eyes because you gotta feel for it, wrong. Feel push with your leg. You try to get 11 guys out of there, and 4 of them is women. They're screaming. I get it, I really do. Somebody gotta keep the guys, keep this sanity from breaking, because I have to get them out. But they gotta believe that we can do this. I'm not a one-man band. This is the team effort. Forget them out of there, and we down over 2,600 feet. Go do the numbers. If you go far, you really go free fall. So that's why I'm concerned with this ventilation, and everybody talking about why the thing will get out in the atmosphere. It goes on daily. You go to any fuel farm, anything along the rail going down into town is all underground fuel lines. And these things happen all the time. But you guys gotta realize the guys who's in the impact zone, the guys who's actually inside the tanks, those guys say goodbye. You cannot be able to recall it back.
Yeah.
And you try to sit down I get 5 trucks going, 5 guys on each truck and a fire truck going in for rescue. I have to be able to get enough guts to sit down with all 25 wives. I explained to them why I would send them down there, knowing the hazards, knowing all of this. My whole concern about the tunnel is safety. That safety factor has to be the key to all operations. And this, you know, I really love you guys, I really do. I share all of the things you guys say about all the things happening inside our housing, and that's why I asked, how come only the housing getting affected? And then I started to realize that I had to do a water survey for the fire department, all military base. If my truck pull up to your house and that hydrant ain't got water, I got to answer to the fire chief and everybody else. So I go, I take my time, I learn all the systems, and when I break this down, then I can do this. This venting, it's doable.
Yeah, we're not saying it's not doable.
No,
we want to be informed.
I'm just saying that because it's important in this dialogue, so everybody can get the gist.
Yeah, and thank you for your expertise. We appreciate
Everybody
you.
can do that.
Mahalo. Okay, so we're gonna move on. We have one more thing. So you have an announcement. So we're gonna move to the next agenda item, which is the University Health Registry. This is Carol's portion. Mahalo.
To get my words. Rosalie, do you have the slides? Thank you guys for welcoming all of us here. I'm a guest of a guest in your home, being an alternate on this. For those who don't know me yet, my name is Tara Sutton. I am an affected community member, as I stated before. I also am working at the University of Hawaii, and this announcement is on behalf of the university. So, Rosalie, do you have the slides?
Yeah, it was not working for some reason. Let me. It might not be full screen, if that is okay with everybody. Okay. Just for now. Yeah, just give me a second.
No problem.
Yeah, you can start. I'll just have them up in a second. Sorry.
No worries. I want to make an announcement on behalf of the University of Hawaii system. I was hired by UH System in order to work on a project of great importance that looks at the health impacts of the Red Hill water contamination. I work in the Office of Strategic Health Initiatives. As many of you know, our community has asked for assistance with adequate access to healthcare and a better understanding of the health impacts of the water contamination. We have not been alone in that pursuit. The CDC and the Agency for the Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, or the ATSDR is easier, in addition to DOH and Hawaii's congressional delegation and others, over the years have called for an independent third-party health registry to monitor the health impacts of Red Hill. Next slide. UH just received a multi-year grant from the National Center for Disease Medicine and Public Health. That acronym is NCDMPH, that's much easier. And the Uniformed Services University of Health Sciences, that's USIS, to establish this independent health registry. So you may have seen in the news today, UH News published it, I'm not sure if any other outlets have, but we are talking about it here so that we can make sure that it goes out to the community as soon as possible. The National Center for Disaster Medicine and Public Health is based at Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, USIS, and works to advance the nation's medical and public health readiness for disasters. So they have an ecosystem, is what they call it, that allows for quick mobilization of medical and public health partners across the nation to serve specific roles that are deemed necessary to respond to public health and medical disasters. So since UH is a member of that ecosystem, it has been recognized for its engagement in the local community and experience in environmental science and public health. And so we were asked to act on behalf of the need to establish the Red Hill Registry so that this registry can be local
hire local staff and be directly informed by those impacted by the crisis, and remain engaged in the community. So together we're going to work through the first year of planning and anticipate formal registry enrollment to begin by fall of 2025. Next slide. I hope you see some familiar faces up there. We have many partners across UH that have come together to submit a proposal to run this type of independent health registry here based in Honolulu. The Office of Strategic Health Initiatives at the UH system level is the hub. Dr. Amy Grace is the director and principal investigator for the project. She's a pediatrician and health policy and public health professional. She apologizes she's unable to be here tonight in person, except I'm joking, she's right there. Surprise! And then Dr. Sandy Weldon, right next to her, who is the registry director, and she is an environmental health scientist with experience studying populations to determine chemical exposures and health outcomes. My picture is there with theirs. My experience, aside from living on the water line and drinking the water, is that I have 3 bachelor's degrees in communicology, anthropology, and ethnic studies, and I'm working on my master's in geography, focusing on the Red Hill water contamination and how crisis response tactics impact trust between the Department of Defense and the local community. Outside of us, you might see some other familiar faces. Down in the corner, we have the WRRC, or Water Resources Research Center. There's Dr. Aurora Kagawa Viviani, Mia Camaros, Dr. Dawn Viviani, who might have been in some people's homes if you're here or watching online. Up at the top, Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health, Catherine Perkle, I don't know if you recognize her face, or Tetine Sentinel. Quite a plethora of people coming together, and yet we're not fully staffed yet. But there's quite a few people coming together across. We have the University Health Partners, and we have the John A. Burns School of Medicine with Dr. Lee. She's the interim dean and director of the medical advising. She'll be the director of medical advising for the registry. Next slide. Okay, so our plan to get started, just like other health registries that exist currently, we will be spending the first year planning to ensure the project incorporates community feedback and focuses on community needs so that we get it right. Community engagement is one of our top priorities. We want to gain insight from impacted water users, those with military affiliation, but also those without. That's very important to me, to look at civilian population and local communities here. Healthcare professionals are people that we want to be able to listen to and listen what types of experiences they're seeing in patients, as well as community leaders with various kinds of expertise around what we've all experienced. We want to co-create the framework of the registry in a way that seeks to address the prominent needs as expressed by our own community. Similar registries like the Flint Registry provides educational materials for medical professionals as well as impacted communities, connecting impacted individuals to services that might include things like healthcare or social service referrals. We want to also offer a place that facilitates a sense of community across the population as families move all across the globe, literally. And registries tend to often track long-term health impacts. And so that is another one of the goals that we intend to do, is look at the long-term health impacts of this crisis. Finally, the first year goal is to set up the registry infrastructure, including hiring staff, establishing various work groups, and IT, which is huge. So the next slide, you'll see beautiful QR code, so feel free to scan that. Right now our website is a landing page, and this is it. It still needs to be built out. We're brand new, so bear with us. But we invite everybody to use this QR. You'll land on redhillregistry.org, real simple. Enter your email address if you would like to receive updates on our progress and community efforts and outreach efforts. If you have questions or comments, my email is up there, tsutton for Tara Sutton at redhillregistry.org. Keep in mind, I'm only one person and we're brand new, so if I wake up and have 300 emails, I'll need a minute. But I will respond and get back to everybody. But if there are thoughts of what ways that this registry can benefit our community, I want to hear it. But if you just want to hear updates as things happen and progress, definitely put your email in that box up there, because emailing me will not add you to that list. Last slide. Thank you. On behalf of the Red Hill Registry, I want to thank the community, everybody who's here tonight, everybody who's online, those who can't make it, for recognizing a problem and fighting for help. And I appreciate that personally very much, and I appreciate it widely as well.
Thank you, Tara. Are there any questions about the Red Hill Registry? She has other staff here that could answer questions as well. Is that Mandy?
Yep,
Okay.
quickly. Thank you so much, Tara. Really excited about this, and I'm grateful for it. Quick, admin question. Will this be, we go, because I'm obviously burn pit registry, for example, serving in the military. Is this something that we will go in and sign up for? Or is this something that, I know that, in preparation for trial, the Navy, had folks come in and dig through our medical records, and we don't know who they looked at and they came up with their conclusions. Can you explain to the public sort of how you will monitor? Will you guys evaluate, medically evaluate people, or will it just be go on and self-reporting? Or is that figured out just yet?
So I want to preface everything with, we don't have 100% answers because we have to develop. We're kind of the registry with our Pampers on right now. We have to learn to walk too. But what I can say is it is a totally voluntary opt-in registry. So if it's something that you're wanting to participate in, you can't be enrolled unless you opt in to enroll. And putting your name on that list is not participating in the registry. Putting your name in that email box on that last slide that I showed is only to receive updates about the registry. Formal enrollment period probably won't be able to begin until next fall, so that we can sort out all of those types of questions and details and be able to plan it together. The university is not intending to do this alone. It's wanting to co-create with the community so that we really get it right. This is something very, very important to me.
Thank you. That's super reassuring. Thank you, Tara.
You're welcome.
Mike.
Okay, I'm excited about a registry, but we know the Navy got their registry, right? How is this different from theirs? Because I kind of like trust UH more, right? I mean, Dr. Viviani was over at my house many times. I like that guy, he's good fun.
He's a good guy.
So how is this different from the Navy? And then two, what is your dissemination plan for marketing, letting people know, not just on Oahu, but people who have moved?
Thank you for that question. So having a baby plan right now, since we've just begun, the funds were just awarded. What we are looking at doing is being able to be very visible within the community eye, being connected to media that is being listened to not only locally, but also throughout the military community, so that Stars and Stripes or Military Times or whoever is being watched. And also participating in local events so that we can be visible in person at as much as possible. Town halls, CRI meetings, things like that. I always come here anyways. But then, I'm wanting to engage with neighborhood town halls and the such.
I have a question. So, is it just military families, or is it any resident? And can it be a family that moved into a residence that's on the Navy water distribution line? And I think that would be super important and powerful, because I know the Red Hill Clinic doesn't take in families that are now getting sick who weren't there in November of 2021 but are getting sick now. So my question.
That's a good question, and it's one that we're already asking internally. as we develop this with the community, all of these types of questions and concerns are going to be discussed together. So it's not decided yet, it is being discussed, and we do know that these are really important questions. Do we want to narrow it down? I know when the lawsuits were taking place, there was a lot of, frustration, or some people were excited that it was narrowed down so that it couldn't get ruled out. This is completely separate and totally different. And so, as we are able to have the listening sessions with the community, inviting people in, listening to experts, medical professionals who are caring for the community, wherever they are, these are things that we're going to discuss together.
And I think Shannon had a question. Can someone give her the mic? Where's the mic? Okay, great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Margaret, the other
Margaret,
Shannon.
sorry.
It's all good. I just wanted to ask, it's been leaking for decades, and the 2014 spill was larger than 221, and there were lots of people who were affected then, but we did not have the togetherness that we have now. So it's kind of like each spill kind of continued to raise awareness throughout Red Hills area, but also throughout the islands. Will we be looking at those who were affected in previous years?
Good question.
Right, that's, again, the same thing. Those are things that we want to be able to decide all together. Nothing is being said no to right now. We have to decide it together.
Okay. And then can people like us help you?
Yes, okay. Please do.
I'd like to.
Thank you. Okay, great. Is any more questions about the Red Hill Registry specifically? Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, your phone. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna move on then, if that's okay, to the last agenda item, which is understanding the Navy's public communications plan. And I wanted to see, did we want to do the ground rules? Okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, maybe the wireless. Do you have the wireless? Yeah, that would be better. Thank you.
You want to strangle each other with that one? Is that on?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. I wish the gentleman who was asking us about the newspaper articles was still here. So what happened, and part of the reason why the Navy isn't here, is the EPA and the Navy the Navy wanted ground rules, which is fine. And so they wanted us to meet separately, meaning behind closed doors. And since we are representing you, the community, we did not want to do that. So the EPA and the DLA and the Navy came up with their own ground rules without us. And so on June 12th, we, the elected members of the CRI, we got together and we made edits and comments on those proposed ground rules, and we sent them back to the EPA. And the EPA just sent us this update on June 12th. The CRI elected members shared written comments on the draft ground rules. EPA, Navy, and DLA are reviewing and will discuss the proposed comments. Until an agreed upon set of ground rules are established, EPA will not enforce the requirement for the Navy and DLA to participate in CRI meetings. So I just wanted to clarify that we are all for coming up with ground rules. We just don't want to do it behind closed doors because there's been way too much of that with the Navy. And so we want to represent you. So that is our struggle, and that is where we're headed. I don't know if the EPA wants to make a comment about that.
Yes, thanks, Susan. So similar to expanding on that, we released a statement earlier today, which we shared with you. It's on our website. It has that exact sentence among more detail and kind of the chronology of how we see it. And so just a little bit more of the background is the CRI was initially created as part of our consent order. It was actually not at all in our proposed consent order, but after receiving 1,700 public comments, one of the biggest comment we got was really making sure that the public was included in important decision-making of the Navy and of regulators throughout this process. And so the CRI was added in as part of that, and the goal was really to provide that platform and that venue. What we've experienced so far is that it doesn't feel like that relationship is building. It feels like it's deteriorating, and that there's the opportunity for input and collaboration hasn't really been fostering. One of our attempt to try and build that bridge is to come up with ground rules that everybody can agree upon. We offered mediation through a third party, the Federal Mediation and Consulation Service. As Susan described, the CRI didn't feel comfortable engaging in that process because it was a confidential process to kind of allow parties to kind of freely express themselves, but understood where the CRI members were coming from. We shared a draft of the ground rules that we developed with the Navy to try and improve the meetings, to bring the best out of the Navy, to share information and to collect feedback on their plans. We came to a meeting. It felt like a lot of the bases for the ground rules were not agreed to by the group. We came back last week, Amy Miller and myself, to the CRI's weekly planning meeting and shared that we had been exploring other amendments to the consent order to think about how to best get the Navy, to have the best public engagement out of the Navy. In that meeting, the CRI members expressed wanting to have an opportunity to provide comments on the ground rules. They had previously indicated that they wanted to do that. They did that later that evening. And so we received them. We shared them immediately with the Navy. We have reviewed them. We have not convened with the Navy to discuss the proposals and edits. There are a lot of comments in there that I think are things that we could negotiate and look on. I think that the main challenge for the Navy has been really the facilitation ownership of the meetings, and part of this is really wanting the Navy to take more ownership in these meetings, to come prepared to share things that they are able to ask for input on, rather than it being a series of questions that they might be more challenged in responding to because it's not necessarily where their focus is. And I think that there's a balance of those two things that can be accommodated, but really trying to create a more collaborative environment for sharing that. But I don't want to make any, I can't really make any dictations about where this is going. We are really listening to what has been said in those meetings, what your comments have been. I don't have a plan forward. We are reconvening with the Navy to negotiate what we do want the path forward. The thing I do want to really commit to is being transparent and communicative with you all about, if or how we make a decision about what that next step might be, to do that, well in advance of any change that might occur. We really do value the CRI. We are here today. We really want to try and be transparent and communicative with you all. I personally have been trying to send more updates and really directly update you all with where things that EPA are involved in, just to kind of improve that flow. But a lot of the feedback we're even hearing today is just that there's a lack of communication from the Navy, and so we really need the Navy to succeed. I think I've heard that as well. We all need the Navy to succeed, even as regulators. We only have so much ability to manage their infrastructure. And so we really, whether it's communication, whether it's upgrades, whether it's monitoring, really need to find a way to make them most effective. So that's really where we're coming at it from. No decisions have been made. We really are trying to take a step back and consider where you all are coming from, and see if we can figure out how to best make this work going forward.
Thank you. And I also want to point out that we did do a survey, a public survey that was filled out by hundreds of people about whether or not we should go into private behind the scenes mediation with the Navy, and the survey that we put out came back from the community saying that they did not want us to go into secret meetings with the Navy at all. So, and that's been the problem here. You know, I think we can all acknowledge that there has not been clear communication, transparency, and even the truth in very important times when we needed the Navy to be truthful. We're the residents here, we are the ones drinking this water. You know, you flew in from San Francisco, and I appreciate you guys doing that. But we're the ones gonna have to live with these decisions that you make, and you know, we need to, and I think, you know, and I've said this from day one, families need to be empowered to make decisions for their own families based on information that is timely and factual. So if we don't have that information, as a head of household myself, if I don't have information on what's in my water, on what's in my air, how can I make good decisions for my family and my family's health and future if I don't have that information? I think, you know, that's why we're here, you know, and I appreciate everybody's mana'o and perspectives, and I want to ask, you know, of course, for forgiveness. You know, I'm very passionate about clean water. I think we all should be, you know, but and I just, you know, please forgive me if I offended anyone, you know, here in this room, but I just wanted to share that. And is there a hand up on the screen?
Yeah, Walter, and then I had a question.
Okay, Walter.
Can I make one more? I want to thank Jamie. Yes, his communication from the EPA has improved greatly, and I just really appreciate his transparency and his communicating with us much, much, much better in these last few weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
I'm joining with Susan in thanking Jamie
Walter,
for...
can you speak louder, please? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I join with Susan in appreciating Jamie's participation and communication with us. It has been a little bit different before this, so that has been helpful. One of the things that I just don't understand, and I've never understood, is the fact that when we have the CRI meetings, they're clearly different meetings. They're designed to be different. The attendees are members of the public. And we're not legislators, we're not politicians, we're members of the public. And as you saw from today, from the input from the people in the who attended tonight's meeting, there's questions, there's comments, there's experiences that is exchanged that may or may not be relevant to the Navy, but to all of us, we need to listen to each other. And it's like we said, we need to work together to come up with some kind of resolution if a resolution is needed. So when we sit here and try to mediate the control of the meetings, the Navy wants to be able to control the way we meet and what we say, who can say what, and so on. And so we can't do that because we represent the public. And the public has clearly given us information regarding the fact that they don't want us to do that. So I understand that you guys are going to be sitting around figuring out what to do with the ground rules and everything. And in the meantime, the Navy doesn't have to attend our meetings. But I will point out to you that they attended our meetings. They didn't answer our questions or address our concerns from the very beginning. So if they're not going to be required to attend the meetings because they stopped answering our questions or they stopped accepting our questions, are you going to at least get them to start looking at our questions? They don't have to attend the meetings, but at least get us a response and maybe address some of our concerns. And I would like to point out the venting of the tanks was an issue brought up in late December. It was a question. In January, it was brought up again in February, again in March, and in April. So by the time we get to a point where all of a sudden everybody's scrambling around, they're doing something, our original question and concern was brought up a while ago and could have been addressed. And again, it started with a question, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to vet the tanks? What are the exposures to people downwind? So that's my question is, are you going to at least get the Navy to answer our questions? Something that you guys have never been able to do, but maybe since they don't want to attend meetings, at least they'll try to answer our questions and address our concerns.
Thanks, Walter. Yes, and I definitely, acknowledge on the venting that it has, I think we talked about that during the venting discussion, stemmed from conversations in the CRI, and we acknowledge and appreciate that. In terms of the questions, I'm aware that the Navy has responded to a lot of them over time. I have not, I haven't seen the latest in terms of what's addressed or not. I know a lot of the responses are not satisfactory to members of the CRI, which is another challenge. But let me get back to you and talk with our team and kind of go through them. I know there's a lot going on there, and just try and get a certain amount of information flow from the Navy. That's a good to-do for us. Thanks.
Thank you. We still have to pass the ground rules, but Shannon, you had something?
Yeah, can I just add something? I'm here because no one else spoke up, at least where I worked, and that's pretty sad when the EPA and DOH is regulating for years, for decades. Why am I the only one that spoke up and said anything to this day, 3 years ago, right? Nobody else that I am aware of is saying, this is where the skeletons are buried. Yes, this was a problem. This is the way to fix it. This is beware residents. There's pipelines running under Pearl Harbor to Hickam to this very day. And this is where they are. We just want you to be aware. So in case you smell gas, it's because a pipeline is buried underneath your house. So my expectation from the EPA and the DOH and regulators is to make that awareness, at least to residents and the public. I don't understand why 3 years later, we're still asking the same questions, at least from my standpoint. Like, I don't understand. I know where the skeletons are buried. That's why I'm here, because you can't fool me anymore. And so I really hope that that information comes out and you're honest with the public. Maybe you don't know, maybe you'll get a petroleum engineer finally. I'm also asking for a petroleum engineer, an expert on your staff for quite some time, because they'll show you. They're pretty smart people. So they can, give you a report on it. But so I guess that's my expectations.
Thank you. We do have some business to take care of, and Mandy, can I give you the last word after the business?
Yeah.
That we need to take care of. Can I have a motion? We're going to be adopting. Maybe I'll have Susan introduce.
Okay. When we first formed, we created some bylaws, and we have adjusted them to add some of the things that we agree with the ground rules with the Navy and the DLA and the EPA. So we just have an administrative thing to do to, I'm making a motion to approve the amendments to our bylaws, which are reflective of some of the areas that we agree with the ground rules. So I move that we approve these new bylaws for the CRI.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. And then can we have a vote? Anybody in opposition on the CRI of these new ground rules? Anyone in opposition? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, our new ground rules and bylaws are passed. And then I just want to make one announcement. We do have an opening on the Red Hill CRI. It's a Native Hawaiian seat. It was vacated by my dear brother, Alfred Medeiros. We'll miss him. But we are going to be opening up nominations starting today. And then can I have a motion to open up nominations for the vacancy?
I move to open nominations for the vacancy for the Native Hawaiian seat on the CRI.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Anybody in opposition to having, opening up nominations for the CRI, Native Hawaiian Sea. Okay, great. So that's open, and we will be having our, we'll have the nominations open, and there will be information on our website. The website's being shown on the screen, and you can please self-nominate yourself. You have to be, it's not a requirement you can be the one, but that would be the most ideal. Let's see, and then okay, and then we'll go to Mandy. Mandy had your hand up. Thank you.
Yep. Quickly, I want to echo what fellow CRIers have said. The EPA has been a lot more responsive and giving us information. I do want to correct the record on a couple of things. As folks have mentioned, it was not the CRI that unilaterally decided to not participate in private mediation. We did take a survey that was based on public opinion, not to go into private meetings, sign NDAs, and things like that. We did our due diligence to check with the public, and that was the consensus. However, we never disagreed or opposed to participating in mediation that was open to the public. The Navy and the EPA were the ones that denied us, public mediation for the public to be involved, and so we've been sort of at a standpoint in that situation. We have, as you heard, the Navy and the EPA did meet privately without us. In fact, it happened during the Red Hill trial, which, we were upset about. We felt like that decision to happen during that time was pretty disrespectful, but we've moved on from that. And they did present us the ground rules. As you've heard, we've adopted new ones. We have compromised. The new, there's this notion that there was never ground rules established. As you heard tonight, there were bylaws. We've been told that this is our meeting, the community's meeting. So we did adopt bylaws before, 9 months ago, before any CRI meeting ever occurred. It wasn't until, January when we did a transition of power from Admiral Wade to Admiral Barnett and Admiral Williams that there was this, new need for new ground rules, and they didn't like the decorum and, people being given the opportunity, as we've passed the mic this evening, for folks to speak and have candid conversations. So to correct the record, it was not a CRI unilateral decision. We never made the decision to oppose mediation. We just wanted to do it for the public to be involved. And there were ground rules established. This is a change too. As you've heard, we have compromised on some things, but one thing that we have put our foot down on based on community input is that we would like to run our own meetings. This is a meeting that was established for the people, by the people, and we would like to maintain the facilitator role on that. When BWF has their meetings, there's not a facilitator. Ernie Lau conducts those meetings. When the state ledge, meets with the Navy, there's not a facilitator. Representative Ichiyama, regulates those meetings. And we're asking to continue to do that so that our people, our community, the communities in which we represent have a voice. And we believe that the voice of the community should not be censored. We also believe that the agenda items should not be censored or, unilaterally decided by the Navy or EPA. We believe that, the agenda should have items that the community wants to talk about. And if the Navy doesn't want to respond, then that is their choice. But we feel like we are trying to serve as a bridge to help rebuild community trust and community relations. And the only way that that will happen is if the Navy utilizes in that way, allows us to be the voice of the community, allows each of you all who are sitting in the audience and those who are online to have a voice and to not be censored and to get your questions answered. I'd like for Susan to end, if she will, after my last question, is how many questions, I don't want to put you on the spot, Susan, but, Walter brought up, there's been many questions. I think there were like over 100, if not 200, Susan probably has that number offhand, that were never answered. And so, you're talking about a community whose, most precious resource has been impacted, their water. You're talking about a community whose children have been poisoned. You're talking about a community who has been lied to. You're talking about a community who has asked legitimate, reasonable questions and who has not received answer those questions in an adequate and timely manner. And so frustration is reasonable. And so we are not in a position to censor you. and we hope that the community will continue to support us, having open communications and allowing us to be the voice and to help, the Navy rebuild trust. One thing that I got out of, Jamie's sort of pitch, if you will, or whatever he just said about the EPA stance on where we're at right now is that, we all want to see the Navy succeed. And I submit to you, Jamie, that in order for that to happen, we need you all to do your job. And that starts with holding them accountable. There's no reason that the Navy should not be here. There's no reason that for months we have kicked this can down the road because of a facilitator ground rule issue. We need you to do your job so that the Navy can, we don't have the ability to enforce anything, but you all do. And so I'd ask that you stop enabling the Navy, hold them accountable, and that they need to be at these meetings because the community, just like you've heard, people in this community, the community needs to hear from them as well.
Thank you, Mandy. We are out of time, and I want to end with a mahalo to Auntie Lynette and Uncle Sparky. What a mahalo, and thank you so much, the Mokupuni Council, for sponsoring this CRI meeting. We really, really appreciate being here, and it's been a different experience, and we're hoping to take the CRI to different communities so that we can have these discussions and get more people involved. It can't just be the 10 of us, it's all of us. This is all, we all live here. So I just want to mahalo all of you, the Mokupuni Council, mahalo Auntie Lynette and Uncle Sparky especially, and mahalo the Department of Health and the EPA for coming tonight. And mahalo to everyone who attended, and for your questions. And just know that I don't hold any grudge against anybody, okay, Uncle? We just, we aloha each other at the end of the day. We aloha each other at the end of the day. Oh yes, and Kalihua, thank you so much. Thank you for being here and mahalo. It's such a beautiful space. There's so much more food left. Please go eat. And mahalo to ka Waihona o kana auao. This has been truly a very enlightening engagement tonight. Thank you so much, everyone. Mahalo.
Thank you. Is the meeting done?
Yeah.
Before you leave?
Yeah.
I would ask you to stay a few more minutes. We need to have a discussion, not online. Okay.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Basically, kind of a debrief, but also.
I was going to cruise for a little while.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because you guys gotta eat.
Yeah. We'll eat you guys.
Oh, wait. I sure you want to. Yeah. The chairs. I'm kind of having to process. Meetings are way constructed.
Okay.